Am I the asshole for offending the bride and groom? So one of my friends, Katie, fake name, is getting married soon, and while hanging out, she mentioned that she'll be sending us her Venmo so that we could pitch in for the wedding. I was confused, so I asked her what she meant. She said that since she and her soon-to-be husband couldn't afford the wedding party, they were requesting for people to cash in as well. I come from a culture where parents usually pay for their kids' weddings, or sometimes the soon-to-be wed do it for themselves or borrow money, which they return back. I was confused, and I asked Kate when she would return the money then, because I really didn't think we were so close as to we could borrow money from each other, and she probably got offended or something over that. My other friend Maya, fake name again, who is also from my culture, then explained to me that it's apparently normal to chip in for your friend's wedding here. I again got confused and somewhat offended, asking if it's a wedding party, why do the guests need to pay then? Kate got really mad and called me an ass for embarrassing her in front of everyone. Her fiancé later called me to say that I really hurt their feelings, and now I am disinvited from the wedding. I'm wondering where I went wrong and if I was being ignorant. Maya is citing this to be some sort of culture shock. Am I the asshole? And how do I fix this? And now in the comments, not the asshole. The audacity of announcing your Venmo to have people pay for a party. The disinvite is a bonus. Now you don't have to throw away money on a gift either. Yeah, I have never heard of a single culture where openly begging for money to host a wedding wasn't tacky and rude. Plan the wedding party that you can afford. Can't afford a wedding celebration? Then get married without the party aspect. Really want the wedding event of your dreams? Then save up for it. Same, I've seen it happen in the US and Canada, but that doesn't mean it's the norm. If you can't afford the wedding you want, you don't get the wedding you want. You gotta make some cuts. It is not normal in the US to make your guests pay for your wedding, not the asshole. Yes, please don't perpetuate this rumor. Everyone already thinks that we are running around with guns murdering each other and letting those without healthcare die in the streets. We are, of course, but we don't need this classless rumor circulating. Not the asshole. Asking questions about a custom that you have never heard of isn't rude. I think it's hilarious that they think not letting you pay for part of their wedding is a punishment to you. In fact, it sounds to me like they're inviting people they barely know to get more money. Now there's an angle. They even invented a societal custom for the foreigner that anybody with access to Google would know was bullcrap. This is all lining up nicely. And now onto the update. Hey everyone, thank you so much for the responses and upvotes and awards. It became pretty clear in the first few comments itself that this was no culture thing or a culture shock. Thank you for explaining, and I am sorry if I offended someone. I have corrected Maya too, and she explained that since she was paying a lot of money for the bachelorette and other bridal party stuff, she figured this must be the norm. Anyways, I didn't call them back, hoping the thing would just pass, but Katie called me and said that she overreacted and invited me back to the wedding. Since a lot of you said that they might be asking for cash instead of a gift, I asked her the same thing. She said that gifts were of course mandatory, but they were asking for some extra help from friends and family to help them kickstart their new journey together. I said I wasn't comfortable in that, because frankly, I am too broke to afford others' weddings. She accepted that and again invited me, but I said that I would rather not after all of this drama, and we ended the call cordially. So that's it. Not very juicy, but at least it's over. Thank you to everyone, and yeah, Maya and I laughed, saying that we really do need better friends. Thank you. And now in the comments, gifts are customary, not mandatory. Katie had a solid apology going until gifts are of course mandatory. OP made the right move in opting not to go. That being said, cash gifts are more normal these days than they were from previous generations. The difference is the couple will put a Cash App or Venmo link on their registry as opposed to basically charging people to attend, which is what Katie made her request sound like. I like the new trend of adding activities to fund on your registry. My sister and wife had options like dinner for two at X place or ziplining or evening cocktails. They were able to make things range from about $15 to $200. That's what I want to do when I get married. It would of course be optional though, not even close to mandatory. Glad to hear that it was solved in a rather civil manner. Your friend, Katie, sounds absolutely bonkers, so I think you did the right thing. I hope more people follow your lead. With friends like that, who needs enemies? Thanks for the update. I love updates. It truly amazes me the goal that so many people have in getting married nowadays. Who in the world gives a person the right to expect people to contribute to the expense of their wedding? And absolutely nothing is mandatory. And I don't even know where to start about expecting the maid of honor or the groomsman to spend a buttload of money on your bachelor or bachelorette party. Geez, people, get a grip. Save up the money you want for a wedding and stop expecting the world to finance this bullcrap. And our next post is titled, "Would I be the arsehole if I left to open my own business?" So I, female 30, am self-employed. I rent a premises from the person, 60 male, who trained me. Let's call him Steve. I have been with Steve and his business for 4 years and qualified in my field a year ago. I began as a trainee. During my training, I began doing treatments at a trainee rate. Steve took half to cover his cost to train me. Upon qualifying, I became self-employed and rent a workspace from Steve, but trade under his business name. I told Steve that I had 2 children and a husband who often travels for business. Steve accepted this and the stipulation that I would need a bit of flexibility and hired me, but Steve became more demanding of my time. Within a few months, I was attending 6 days a week and picking up all the scut work. When I qualified in my field, my husband retired with some savings. We invested in the kit that I needed. This used a large sum of our savings, followed by a pandemic that prevented me from trading. Steve still continues to log all of my income, taking 50% of my self-made income as workspace rent. In the first few months after the quarantine, I was in debt, which I paid off quickly. Due to this, I began getting in debt to Steve for the 50% cut that he wanted. Steve got angry and accused me of stealing money, so Steve began taking an extra cut. I am walking away with only around 25 to 30% of my self-made income. On top of the income issue, Steve expected me to work for him rather than myself despite being self-employed. Steve dictates my work hours, and I must ask permission for time off. Steve expects me every day for his scut work, 6 days a week from 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. even if I don't have appointments. Whenever I try and reason with Steve and remind him that I have a young family, he reminds me of all he has done for me, and all that he requests in return is loyalty. Recently, it has become more unbearable. I sought help in a financial advisor who calculated that I had paid Steve just shy of $48,000 rent in only 9 months, and explained that I could have my own premises for much less. He found me several rentals I could look at for reference and information to start up my own salon. I called sick today as Steve made my life so miserable. He was bad-mouthing me to colleagues and clients, knowing that I could hear, and even bad-mouthing my husband, calling him an arsehole. I am a bit of a pushover, and I didn't speak up for myself. He claims because I had stolen from him by being late with invoices, he can't trust me, and I had to work harder to prove that I was trustworthy enough for him. Steve always reminds me I owe him my career, and all he asks for in return is loyalty. Would I be the asshole to leave in spite of this, and start myself as a competitor of the business who trained me? After all, I wouldn't have my qualifications if he hadn't hired me to begin with. And now in the comments, not the asshole. Steve is obviously taking advantage of you at this point. You deserve better than that. Not the asshole. You owe Steve nothing. You paid for your training. He didn't help you at all. Does a college graduate have to bend over backwards a year later to help their former professor grade tests? There honestly sounds like several illegal actions being taken here, and that you may want to document and consult a lawyer about. But the short version is that he is treating you almost like an indentured servant. Aside from the illegal elements of this, one has not done you a favor if they then spend years asking you to pay them back, especially if they are asking you to do more for them than they had initially done for you. That is just an unfair transaction. Would you accept it if the grocery store charged you $8 for a $4 gallon of milk because they did you the favor of selling you the milk in the first place? Not the asshole times 100. In the UK, the tax office has criteria for deciding whether you are an employee or genuinely self-employed. Someone setting your work hours, managing your work, etc. makes you an employee. Legally here, you could sue him for sick pay, holiday pay, etc. on the grounds that you are actually an employee, plus many other possible violations like minimum wage, working hours, etc. Get your own premises and forget about him. If he carries on hassling you, get a lawyer to send him a cease and desist letter. And now on to the update. After reading the comments on my previous post, I decided it would be in my best interests to start the process of opening my own place. I did this discreetly, knowing Steve would have been furious if he knew of my plan to go solo. I planned to continue renting until I had managed to secure my rental and upgrade it to the standard needed to open. However, I got very sick with an ongoing infection which wouldn't shift. My doctor believes due to burnout from working 6 days a week for so long without a break. Yes, Steve was aware I was sick but didn't offer any respite to cover. My doctor sent me for emergency treatment at hospital, at which point I was forced to take time off sick. I was told firmly that I needed at least 2 weeks. That wasn't accepted graciously, and I was bombarded with messages and calls demanding info of my recovery and expected return from the second day of my absence. Bearing in mind, I am meant to be self-employed with no legal requirement to inform anyone of my recovery. The final straw came when I got a phone call just as I had come out from a minor surgery, still a surgery, and was quizzed about my health. I was groggy and confused and scolded for not replying to a message Steve had sent me the day prior. Honestly, I didn't notice the message. I was genuinely sick and have an underlying chronic condition which extends my recovery time generally. I was visibly upset and my husband witnessed the call. Being too weak and upset to address it, my husband decided enough was enough and phoned Steve to be met with an accusation that the situation was my fault for not responding to a message. He asked someone to collect my belongings, most of my expensive equipment we invested into from our savings, and my qualification certificates missing, and I left there and then. Steve has refused to return my property and the certificates, but I don't even care. I'm free and can replace the equipment and get copies of my certificates. Just a small update and a genuine thank you for all of the wonderful advice on my previous post. And another update, I got my belongings back. Am I the asshole for calling out my mother-in-law at her daughter's memorial service for implying her daughter's death was sadder because she wanted children? My 26 male, wife, 26 females, younger sister, 23 female, passed away unexpectedly. It was shocking for all of us, and I've just been trying to be supportive while processing my own grief. At her memorial service, I overheard a relative, who had lost her only child, tell my mother-in-law that while my sister-in-law's death was tragic, at least she had another child. My mother-in-law tried to explain that that wasn't any consolation since her daughters were both unique individuals, but then they got into a borderline argument about it. My mother-in-law then tried to put it to rest by saying, in any case, even if I still have OP's wife, sister-in-law was my only hope for having grandchildren since OP's wife doesn't want any, so I will always be mourning that missed possibility. For context, my wife and I aren't even child-free. We just don't want to have children until at least our late 30s. It has been a very sore point for her mother, who has made it very clear to everyone that she believes that we are lying about delaying it just to avoid discussing it with her. At that point, I interrupted and said it's a very insensitive thing to say about both her daughters, to reduce one's entire value to her openness towards having children and dismiss another's value for not having children in the near future. My mother-in-law seemed to not even consider my point and was mostly just incensed about how I could even comfort her at a time like this. She finally told me she's not in any state to deal with this and left. I later told my wife about it, and she said that even if I was right, then wasn't the time to bring it up, and that she doesn't have any emotional capacity to even care about it at the moment. I feel really guilty for being responsible for creating some new drama right now, but I also think that what my mother-in-law said was highly dismissive, and that I had to defend my wife right there. Now in the comments, you're the asshole. Your wife is right. This wasn't the time or place to have this conversation. Your mother-in-law is dealing with incomprehensible grief and isn't in a position to have perfect feelings about things, and while her comments were ugly and mean-spirited, confronting her at her dead daughter's memorial service was comically inappropriate. You should apologize. And mother-in-law was poked first by the dumb, "Well, at least you have another living child" comment. That was a stupid and cruel thing to say at someone's child's funeral. So mother-in-law has the additional mitigation of trying to defend herself against that hurtful comment. This conversation never should have happened in the first place. Grief is not a competition, and the person who said that is just as big of an asshole as OP. You're the asshole, and the relative who started the conversation is a massive asshole. And who the hell says, "Well, you lost one, but hey, at least you've got another"? What? That is so insane. And then for you to be rude to her about your opinions on having children while she's mourning the death of her child? She is absolutely allowed to mourn the fact that she will never get grandchildren from her younger daughter. Who cares if she made some passing comment about not having grandkids? She is allowed to mourn not getting grandkids just as much as you're allowed to not have children. You should have bit your tongue. You were way out of line, and so was the relative. You're the asshole. Timing of your comments is really shitty, and you should have just held off commenting on this until more appropriate time. Yikes. While I agree with you on what your mother-in-law said, the memorial service was not the time to confront her about it. You're the asshole for that, but not for wanting to stand up for your wife. Nah, I kinda think it's fair for her to mourn the fact that she's not having grandkids, and grief makes you say stupid things. There is no correct time to confront her because she's allowed to be sad over things. It'd be shittier if she was putting pressure on them, and she's not saying that one sister was worth more than another, just that she probably won't have grandkids. And now onto the update. I should probably explain why I didn't respond to any of the comments. It dawned on me immediately just how awful I was to say what I did, and that I continued thinking I could be right in some twisted way till I saw the answers here. I told my wife straight away how sorry I was for adding to her grief when it should be my duty to be by her side through it. I waited till now to apologize to my mother-in-law. I told her I failed her in every way, by not standing up for her when she was told a massively insensitive thing, by misunderstanding what she actually meant, and by causing her that kind of hurt when she hadn't even begun to process her mourning and affirmed that she is the best mother both her daughters could have asked for. We cried together for some time. We talked a lot about my sister-in-law, her life, how difficult and different it's going to be. We had a frank conversation about the future. She said she's sorry how her comment might have come off as, but she really felt upset deep down because she might not get to experience being a grandmother. I didn't really know if it was the right thing to say at the time, but I told her that we both really do want kids, but we want to be richer and in better places in our careers so we won't have to struggle with balancing parenthood with work and can spend time with them. I even told her that we just started saving up for freezing embryos and are going to get it done next year. She seemed to be genuinely convinced and comforted and said that she's happy that we had that talk. I'm really grateful for this sub. Without it, I probably would have just sat on my shitty opinions indefinitely until people forgot about it. I wish I didn't need to be told what an asshole I was. Now in the comments, it takes a massive amount of self-awareness to not only realize you were wrong, but also to own up to it with no excuses to the people that you hurt. It sounds like your mother-in-law was comforted by hearing that you and your wife had plans in the future for having kids. I know we are strangers, but damn, I'm proud of you, OP. I agree. It sounds like the whole ordeal may actually end up strengthening OP's relationship with mother-in-law, which is probably good for the both of them given the circumstances. Also, it sounds like mother-in-law having hope for grandkids again might help at least relieve a small amount of massive grief that she is facing. So happy that you recognized and apologized for your poor behavior. Fingers crossed that all goes well for you and your wife on your future fertility journey. Also, very sorry for the loss of your sister-in-law, but thankful that your family is coming together to support one another. Our next post is titled, "Am I the asshole for dropping my freeloading brother off at our aunt's house after she called and scolded me for evicting him? My older brother, OB, is a bit of a bum. It's mean to say, but it's true. He can never hang on to a job for longer than a couple of years max, and when he inevitably loses whatever job he had, he starts mooching off of family and friends until he can find another job months later. This entails him freeloading at their place, eating their food, using their stuff, etc. He's lost friends because of how long he bummed off of them, and I don't blame them for cutting him off. Well, this last time he lost his job, he went to our parents, but they didn't have room because they were letting our eldest brother's family stay with them after he and sister-in-law lost their jobs out of nowhere within the same month. EB's entire crew was laid off with zero warning, and sister-in-law's work burned down, and they couldn't afford the home they were renting anymore. So older brother was pretty much up a creek without a paddle. So our parents, aunt, and uncle all started calling me, asking if I'd take him in just long enough so that he could get on his feet again. I stupidly let myself feel bad for him and said okay, but he only had a few months to get another job or he was out on the street. They all said of course, and so he came to stay with me. And it was a nightmare. He's a slob. He never washes dishes, never washes his clothes, and eats pretty much whatever he wants. I guess since I'm his little sister, he figured he could ignore me saying to get his crap together. Well, after 6 months I told him he had to go, and I gave him a couple of weeks to find somewhere else. Well, it seems he called our parents and cried about me wanting to kick him out, and they told him he knew he couldn't stay forever, but they also of course called my aunts and uncle and told them all about it. And my busybody aunt called me and scolded me for being cruel to my brother and abandoning family when they need help. I let her talk and finally said she was right. Helping family was important, and I'm glad she showed me that. She seemed glad that I understood the right thing to do before hanging up. So I followed her advice and packed my brother up and drove him to her house. I couldn't take care of him anymore. He was running all my bills up, but my aunt made a good point. Families should help each other. So I dropped him off. She has rooms since all her kids moved out and then left. But I wasn't even halfway home before I was getting multiple calls from my parents and aunt. Parents were demanding to know why our aunt was blowing up their phones, and aunt was leaving voicemails shouting at me to come back and get my brother. I explained to my parents, and they said that it was a good idea since aunt sounded like she wanted to help, but my aunt called me an asshole and said that she didn't want my brother there. And when I told her family helps each other, she called me an expletive. Last I checked, he is still living with her. Am I the asshole? Now in the comments, not the asshole. Congratulations, you did exactly what Reddit always advises people in your situation. If they think helping family is so important, they can take care of the freeloading relative. Good job for being kind enough to give him a chance, and for being strong enough to boot him out when you were fed up. And OP says, I'm pretty new to Reddit, so to hear that family being obnoxious like mine is common makes me sorta sad. Not the asshole. Yes! Finally, someone on this subreddit took action and dropped the mooch off to the family member who loves to scold but not help. You are absolutely iconic, and I wish I could give you all the awards. And your parents agreed that the nosy aunt, who should have minded her damn business, should help? Double iconic. This is the best thing I've read today. What a queen. Yes, you are, ma'am. And OP says, my aunt gets in everyone's business, not just mine. She's stuck her nose in my parents' business more than once, so I think that they were happy that she had to help for once. You are not the asshole. You are amazing. High five. Sorry for lack of replies. I answered what ones I could before I left for work, and when I got back, I had far too many to answer. Lots of people have been asking similar questions, so I thought answering them here once would be helpful. 1. My brother doesn't work menial jobs. He's not just hopping from one minimum wage job to another, he is working very good paying jobs, like electronic repair, automotive maintenance, etc. He is very skilled but lazy. 2. No, my aunt hasn't spoken to me since she called me an expletive and then hung up on me. 3. My brother has only been with her about 3-ish weeks. He stayed with me for 6 to 7 months. 4. My brother was upset I was kicking him out initially, but in a better mood when he realized I had another place lined up for him to stay. Not sure how they're doing together, since I haven't talked to either since after I dropped him off. And 5. No, my aunt isn't married anymore. Her and my uncle got divorced and he lives with his new wife. But I heard from Dad that he thought that this was all hilarious. Edit 2. To everyone who has been hounding me through PM and in the comments, my brother isn't, last time we checked, neurodivergent, nor does he have ADD or ADHD. Our mum took him to the doctor more than once around when he was 15 to 17, when his behavior was at its worst. According to our mum, the doctors all said that he was perfectly healthy and fine, though they, the doctors, suggested he wasn't being mentally stimulated enough, aka he was bored? Mum wanted to take him to see other doctors, but by then, he had turned 18 and refused to go, and she couldn't force him. Also, it's been suggested that he maybe see a doctor now, but my older brother doesn't seem interested at all. He has never had the highest respect for doctors or mental illness. He treats it like it's fake. When our baby sister was diagnosed with an eating disorder when she was 19, he just cracked a joke about her wanting a doctor's note so she could eat more. Our next post is titled, Am I the Asshole for Making a Crass Joke to Make My Father-in-Law Uncomfortable? We were visiting my wife's parents. We don't visit at all. My wife doesn't have a good relationship with them. My father-in-law pulled me aside and told me that he had something to tell me. He told me that I should reconsider the marriage because my wife is straight and she had never dated a woman before me. He also said my wife has always loved the finer things in life and she married me because she couldn't find a rich man. He said this with absolute sincerity. I didn't know what I could say to that, and I ended joking that if she is straight, she's really great at faking orgasms. He was very embarrassed by it and dropped the subject. My wife is upset with me because she hated that I talked to her parents about our sex life, and her mum found it really inappropriate and is telling her to be more respectful. I feel like an asshole because I didn't really defend her properly and embarrassed her instead. Now in the comments, this one is tough, but I'm leaning more towards not the asshole, specifically because your wife's parents are okay with bringing up uncomfortable topics, money, previous taste in gender, and basically calling their daughter a gold digger with the she's with you because she couldn't find a rich man, until that topic is something that shocks them. They deserve to be uncomfortable. Maybe then they'll stop meddling in stuff that is none of their business. I want to say not the asshole because I can relate, and if your wife weren't involved, that would be my judgment, but I'm leaning you're the asshole / everyone sucks here on the principle that however satisfying for you, and however much your in-laws definitely deserved it, you brought up your wife's orgasms to her father without her knowledge or prior consent. I think that she gets the final say here, and she's saying that you're the asshole, so that's where I'm going to land as well. So yeah. As much as I agreed that he deserved it for bringing up her sexuality in the first place, your wife didn't deserve to have her sexual conduct used as a weapon against her father. You're the asshole implies the in-laws are not assholes. Everyone sucks here sounds more fitting to your call because there is no way the in-laws aren't assholes in this situation, which I'd back, because OP upset her wife with her retort. Everyone sucks here. Your father-in-law is homophobic and you disrespected your wife's privacy to her father. You made her the butt of the joke, and now she has to suffer the embarrassment for it. You owe her an apology. Everyone sucks here, meaning everyone but your wife. Your father-in-law is of course an asshole. Your mother-in-law is for going after your wife instead of you and her husband, and you for embarrassing your wife. Not the asshole. I was going to vote the other way, but I will say that will probably stop him from talking to you again about your sex life. He was the one to bring it up though, plus he disrespected you and your relationship. I almost never disagree with the comments here, but I am going to have to today. For me, it's irrelevant what the father deserved. What is relevant here is her wife. So yeah, as much as I agree that he deserved it for bringing up her sexuality in the first place, her wife didn't deserve to have her sexual conduct used as a weapon against her father. She's the one whose orgasms you brought up publicly without her prior knowledge or consent. So if she says you're the asshole, that's where my vote is going. But yeah, F her dad. Yikes. And now onto the update. I was the asshole. I was judged not the asshole, but most comments were telling me that my father-in-law deserved it, but all the everyone sucks here comments were focusing on how I hurt my wife, and I don't care about my father-in-law. But I care greatly about my wife. I apologized to her again, and she said she wasn't ready to talk about it yet. I was worried for a few days, but she opened up. She told me that she wasn't really upset with me. She was embarrassed, but she knew that it would always end up this way with me saying something stupid after being pushed into a corner. She told me she is tired of dealing with them and their drama. She said she had been trying to make it work, but they were shitty and they didn't care about us. She said she is going low contact with them, and all they did was bring hurt and sadness into her life. She cried a lot, but she said that she was firm and she was not going to stay in touch with them or visit them until and unless they accept our relationship, P. Now in the comments, I'm really happy with the outcome, OP. You and your wife should be a team, always. I'm glad you and your wife have such great open communication. Sometimes it's hard to figure out the exact reason for an emotion or who it's really directed at, and your wife was mature enough to step away from the situation, look into it, figure out how to explain her feelings to you, and told you. Sorry her family is crap, but cheers to your relationship. Can I thank you and your wife for being as sweet and open with communication as you are? I'm glad that you worked things out, and I'm sorry your in-laws can't wrap their heads around your wife's sexuality. Yeah, I don't think you were an asshole in the first place. Her father was, and in an awkward moment, you blurted something inappropriate. It happens. Oh Lord, it happens. And I'm really glad that you worked it out. Am I the asshole for attending the funeral of my mother? I, 24 female, was given up by my parents as a baby because they were both 18 and had no way to properly care for me. I didn't have a very good life until I got into college off of a sports scholarship, and it was then that I decided to investigate my past. I found out that my parents were still together, that they had 2 other kids a lot younger than me, and had overall become very successful in life. I started to feel very resentful, and although I almost reached out, I decided that I couldn't. But I still kept tabs on them to see how they were doing, and how my siblings and stuff are. When I found out that my mother died, I did attend the funeral a few weeks ago. It was a big funeral. A lot of people attended, but it wasn't packed. The thing is, other than my hair being jet black, I look just like my mother did. So when people were leaving, I got spotted by my mother's hysterical great aunt, who assumed I was my mother. I excused myself, but I'm pretty sure I exposed who I was, because just a few days ago, my father managed to find me and reached out to me. When we met at a coffee shop 3 days ago, he apologized for having given me up, not reaching out sooner, and ended up crying over not getting to raise me. It's the first time I saw a grown man cry. He asked me if I needed anything from a car to a place to stay, but I couldn't help but feel like I was embarrassing him. So I said goodbye and left, but I've received a lot of texts and voicemails from him since then asking why I left early, or if I'll meet him again. But I don't feel like I can talk to him. Then I got a phone call from a woman saying she was his cousin and my aunt, and that I should have stayed away because he's inconsolable now, and I'm an asshole for choosing a funeral to reveal myself. I feel like my aunt is right because all I've done is brought him new grief after he just lost his wife. Now in the comments, not the asshole. I feel bad for you and your biological father, honestly. This is just a tough situation. Your aunt should seriously shut up. Technically, she would be her second cousin. No, she would be a great-great-aunt if she is indeed the mother's great-aunt. And OP replies, the aunt who was hysterical and confused me for my mother in her grief is my mother's great-aunt and is in her 90s. The aunt who called me is my father's cousin. They are 2 different women. Your biological father just lost his high school sweetheart and wife of many years. I think he was going to be grieving regardless. If you do need any help, you might allow him to help you out, but just know that there may be some strings attached. The old busybody needs to mind her own business. Not the asshole. You didn't ask your aunt to out you. She is the asshole by telling your father. The cat is out of the bag now, so I do think that you need to communicate and not shut him out. You kinda did bring this on yourself. It's an unintended consequence. By going to the funeral, which was an honorable and right thing to do, you did create a situation where this could occur. I do think you need to see this through. I would suggest you try and ignore everything else and just talk to him and tell him you didn't mean to reveal yourself at the funeral, you just came to quietly pay your respects, and now things have escalated. And OP says, I mean, she had just lost her niece and was crying more than anybody that I'd ever seen. I don't blame her for exposing me. She has lost more than I ever know. It's just that I carried years of sadness at being abandoned. The only thing they gave me was a name. When I found out how successful they were, it made me feel even worse. I went to the funeral because I didn't want to have never been in a room with my mother, but I'd never planned on connecting with anybody. It's why I feel that I'm in the wrong here. By going, I took this situation that wasn't about me and made it about me, and I feel like if I back away, I would be making it even worse. Talk to your dad. Tell him this, and tell him everything else. I'm sorry for everything that has happened to you, but you can still have a relationship with your father and siblings. Those feelings of resentment are absolutely normal. But just remember, if they had kept you, their lives would have been different than the successful and happy ones that they seem to have. I think you're not the asshole, but it seems like you need to talk to someone to work out your feelings about all this heavy stuff that you are carrying. And OP replies, I know. It would have been a lot different if they just kept me, and they probably wouldn't have been happy. But what hurts me is that they never came back for me after they became successful or tried to find out what happened to me. My father admitted as much to me when we talked. I wish I'd stayed forgotten. Sweetheart, from their perspective, they may have felt that it was cruel to reach out. They may have believed that you were better off, and they would be interfering. You can't know this unless you speak to him. It's possible they didn't contact you because they loved and cared for you, and they didn't want to stir up what they may have thought was a good life. Your feelings are normal. The decision is completely yours as well. How can you know if you never ask? It's possible that it's just miscommunication and perceptions that stand between you. I think it may give you some closure, if you decide to follow that path. You are not the asshole, and he may not be one either. And now onto the update. So I'm posting this because I said I would in a month. Things happened and it's gotten better. The first thing was my aunt, Dad's cousin, phoned me like the day after and apologized to me. She told me she practically raised my dad, and seeing him like he was made her act without thinking. She told me my dad wanted to see me again and would appreciate it if I would meet her too. I told her how hurtful what she said was, and I needed time before seeing her but did agree to meet him. Fast forward a week, I go to meet my dad. I kept rereading everyone's advice and using it to prepare what to say. He was more composed. I told him it hurt me so much to be abandoned, and it hurt seeing how successful he was, and it made me not feel wanted, and meeting him made me want to be forgotten. He told me he never forgot about me, and showed me a small baby photo of me that he keeps in his wallet, and told me he still sees me as his baby, even though I'm grown. He told me he and my mum used to cry for me every day after giving me up, but they still prayed for me every day, even until the end. He once again told me everything he could give me if I'd let him. I told him I wanted no money or anything from him, and I didn't intend to reveal myself. He told me it was okay if I wanted nothing to do with him, but asked that I be a part of my mum's great-aunt's life, as she hadn't stopped talking about me since exposing me, and gave me her address. He insisted I was always wanted, but he always thought that I'd been adopted and didn't want to ruin my life. And that's something a lot of you said, so I was prepared for it. He asked me to forgive him for not being there for me, and said he would do whatever to be my dad. I guess I realized I could push him away or finally have what I wanted. I told him my teenage fantasy was that he'd come save me from the orphanage, and we both started crying. He told me we can save each other, and I hugged him and forgave him. Since then, I started seeing him more. I visit my great-great-aunt every other day, she's started calling me by my baby nickname that she had for my mom, and my dad also started coming to the gym that me, my fiancé, and my best friend started after grad. He's been trying to do all the dad stuff that I missed out on that we can still do, like teaching me how to drive, business advice and stuff. I also finally don't feel so upset over my siblings getting a better life than me. He also got us both into counseling, and I've finally been able to talk about all my years in the system before I aged out. He is hosting a New Year's party and asked me to come so I can meet all my relatives, cousins, and siblings, and yes, I am going. So I want to thank everybody that prepared me for how he felt in giving me up and how he felt in getting to see me again. I think that if you all hadn't pointed that out to me, I probably would have just tried to stay hidden, and I wouldn't have finally gotten a dad. And now in the comments, this is really beautiful. Your dad sounds like someone that is good to have in your life, and I'm sure he's thrilled to finally have a relationship with you. And OP says, I guess I really did misjudge a lot of things when I first met him. He really is the dad that I wanted when I was a teenager. I like Maya Angelou's quote. I did then what I knew how to do. Now that I know better, I do better. I really don't think that you or your father did anything wrong. Now you can both move forward in a better place than you were before. And OP says, I really like that quote. It'll be strange going from zero family to a big family in under 2 months, but I know that I'll have my dad and really, really old, but cute great-great-aunt with me. I remember you. I was really hoping it would end up this way. It sounds like the best possible outcome. I wish you both peace while finding your footing. I hope this is the start of the beautiful family relationship that you missed out on. Quality, not quantity. That's what truly matters. And OP replies, thanks. I wasn't going to put out an update, but then I suddenly remembered I said I would, and yesterday I wrote it so people who remembered my post might get closure, because I know people can cling on to sad stories sometimes. It is great to hear that you made up and managed to forgive your father. I hope this Christmas and New Year holidays will be a start to a happier life with your dad and family members. And OP replies, thanks. I'm really nervous to meet everybody and to go to my dad's home, but I'm also excited. Thank you so much for sharing with us. It's an amazing update and everyone is so happy for you. Our next post is titled, Am I the asshole for calling my grandmother insane for having beef with a 16-year-old? So I, 19 female, have a very complicated relationship with my paternal grandmother. She's generally sweet to everyone, but is very mean to my younger brother, 16 male. Always has been. I have a lot of theories as to why, but my grandma insists it's because my brother is immature, bratty, disrespectful, etc. My brother is more of a troublemaker than the rest of us, but he is by no means a bad kid. Anyways, my parents, older siblings, and younger brother refuse to speak to her at all, and although I really want to cut contact with the old lady, I feel a little bad for her considering she's all alone now. My family are fine with me visiting and talking to her occasionally. Last week, I picked my brother up from school when Grandma called. She said it was an emergency, so I asked my brother if he minded if I drop over to her place real quick. He said it was okay, so we set off. My grandma kept spamming me with urgent texts the whole time. We finally get there, and my brother decides to come in as well because Grandma sent very alarming texts, but guess what? The emergency was that she ran out of frickin' avocados. Not once did she mention avocados in her texts. My brother got pissed off because he missed his sports practice and said, "This is so effing annoying and F your avocados." My grandma was shocked and called my brother a stupid idiot. She brought up his ADHD and how he was the result of an affair. I am 100% sure that he isn't, by the way. I got pissed off too because she was being extra mean for no reason and called my grandma insane and told her that she was really effing crazy for having beef with a kid. Also, it's just avocados. We left after a little more arguing. My grandma keeps messaging me now saying I broke her heart and that she expected better from me, that I was incredibly rude and this isn't good for her health. I refuse to respond to her texts and am planning on going no contact with her, but my older sister said that I was in the wrong yesterday, which is making me doubtful. My sister says my brother insulted her first and she only retaliated. My sister also thinks my brother needs a stern talking to anyways. The only reason I'm doubtful is because my sister hates our grandma. That must mean something, right? Also, my grandma does have health issues which worsen when she's in stress, and she texted me only a couple of hours ago saying she's almost fainted a bunch of times because of my brother and me. So am I the asshole for defending my brother and calling my grandma insane/crazy? And now in the comments, not the asshole. F, and I say this with as much respect as I can muster, your grandma. Your granny is a master manipulator. How many members of your immediate family dislike her and avoid her? All of them, did you say? Your language might have been a bit rough indeed, and your brother's too, but Granny claimed to have an emergency that turned out to be bogus and in poor taste. She does not respect you or your time. Stick to your guns, not the asshole. And OP replies, I suppose our language was rough. And yes, all of them. My dad is her only child too. She doesn't have many friends either, and my grandpa divorced her years ago. Thanks for your comment. I had a grandmother very similar to yours, except she switched which grandchild she scapegoated and abused frequently. She once told my then 5-year-old brother that he had given her a heart attack and nearly killed her by being so naughty. He hadn't even misbehaved. My only advice is to not cater to her appalling behavior, call her out on the BS, and make it clear that if she wants to continue to have a relationship, she needs to act like a decent human being. Not the asshole. In part because you are not equipped for this. Where are the grown-ups? And OP replies, Dad is in another city because of a medical emergency related to our uncle. My mother is stressed with work and we don't want to stress her out even more. Either way, thanks for the judgment. You are kinda right, I'm really not equipped for this. You are not responsible for your grandma. You're not responsible for your mum's stress. You are only responsible for your own actions, which you are still learning because you were young. Deep breaths. Connect to your values. Remember, you can always leave. It doesn't matter what people say and think. If you're in a tough spot, you can always leave. Think about how you want to leave. And OP replies, Wow, this was really nice. Thank you. I needed these reminders. Thanks again. Also, if I may share a theory, cutting contact with family isn't easy, and no matter how justified it feels, a part of you wonders. If everyone is collectively cutting contact with one person, that puts each individual in a similar position. Justification because they aren't alone, guilt for ganging up on someone. It's possible that your family had an easy time cutting contact with her because someone, you, decided not to. The guilt was lessened. So your sister suddenly taking your grandma's side might possibly be because of that. The idea of the last person also cutting contact makes her uncomfortable. It's probably not a conscious thought in that case, just a general feeling of discomfort that she interpreted as thinking that you were in the wrong. Of course, I may be totally off base. Perhaps she's upset at your brother for other behavior and thinks that bad blood with grandma was just used as an excuse to let him off the hook, or perhaps it's something completely else. Just some perspective for why your sister has reacted like she did. Regardless, not the asshole. You don't need to stay in contact with a toxic person to make it easier for those who chose not to, if that theory is correct. They also cut contact. Telling you not to doesn't hold much weight. Not the asshole. Grandma is now trying to guilt you after being told off for her lack of respect. Don't cave. Parents and sister can help her then. Avocados are not emergencies. Maybe your brother was rude, but she seems to be very spiteful and mean. Saying he isn't a fair child is disgusting, even if it was true. It should not be thrown in an argument. And OP replies, you are absolutely right. But yeah, he isn't an affair child. The only reason my grandma thinks so is because my brother looks nothing like my dad and just like my mother, who was or is extremely pretty. My grandma wanted my brother to be in some beauty pageant. I don't even know, when he was much younger, and my mother refused because she hated those things, and that was when my grandma started the affair child bullcrap because somehow it correlates. Eye roll, am I right? Wow. Recalling everything is seriously making me wonder why I even tried with her. Thanks for your reply. And now, onto the update. Quick update for those people who asked. It hasn't been long, but I doubt much is going to happen after the crap that happened, so I'm updating now. So my little brother decided to take matters into his own hands and almost made everything so much worse. Him and his friends are going to egg, yes, egg, my grandmother's house. My older brother found out and put a stop to it. We, my other siblings and I, were pretty annoyed, but then my brother had a huge breakdown. He said some sad stuff, but basically, he has literally been feeling physical pain since the incident. My mum ended up walking in on this, and she was so mad. She was upset with my siblings and I for keeping this whole thing a secret, but was more upset with my grandma. After I finished explaining the whole situation, Mum drove to my grandma's house and blew up. She made me and my brother come along, and holy, I have never seen my mum so angry. She told my grandma that she was tired of her behaving like a child, and that she should have been grateful that I still talked to her. She called my grandma a jealous witch who needed to get over herself. She then forced her to apologize to my brother and I. My grandma apologized to me, but refused to even look at my brother. This made my mum angrier, and she made some very true observations about my grandma's personality. And then we left. My grandma was shocked the entire time. My mum never shouts. She's what some consider a pushover, but oh my god, y'all. Anyways, Mum apologized to us as well for some reason, and then got everyone ice cream. My dad is coming back tonight, Mum told him everything, and he apologized for not being here as well. They both feel guilty, but I don't think they understand that we didn't tell them for their own sakes, not because we didn't trust them. Either way, brother has a therapy appointment this week to talk about everything, plus work on the whole egging houses thing. But other than that, that's it. My grandma hasn't texted me since my mum yelled at her. I touched on this in the comments, but the reason she dislikes my brother so much is because he quite literally is a copy of my mum, and my mum is stunning. My mum was in beauty competitions as a kid, and so was my grandma. My grandma never won a single one, while my mother won a couple. That is what stemmed her hatred for my mum. It's crazy how this all ties back to something so toxic. Also, my grandma loves being in control, so when my mother refused to allow my brother to participate in these dumbass beauty pageants, my grandma went crazy and accused my mum of cheating on my dad. In conclusion, I'm really freaking stupid for wanting to give my grandma a chance despite knowing all of this. Like, I'm going insane wondering why. Anyways, thanks for the supportive comments. I do realize now that grandma is not my responsibility. And now in the comments, I am so glad that your mother stood up for you. Your grandmother is truly toxic, immature, and quite controlling. Hopefully your brother will benefit from therapy and completely cut your grandmother out of your life. I think your whole family should go no contact with her. She will live to regret it very soon. I think OP's mum blew up because she had to deal with her mum's behavior her whole life. That rage had built up for a long time, and seeing history repeat with her kids is what set it loose. In the original post, the OP said that it was his paternal grandmother, so the situation is actually an old lady being jealous of her son's beautiful bride, and the bride being okay putting up with a bad treatment directed towards herself, but also pulling a mama bear moment when she gets wind of one of her children being treated that way. It's no wonder the family are no contact with her. She sounds like a manipulative, jealous old shrew. OP shouldn't feel sorry for her, but I can see why she does. Hey, I get it. Deep down, we don't always want to believe our family can be shitty. I know this because I have forgiven toxic family members too many times, and each time I was hurt more and more until therapy and a real support system showed me that I don't need them. You were never the asshole for trying to remain in contact. You were trying to do the right thing, and now standing by your brother is continuing to do the right thing. Grandma made her bed. She can wallow in all the self-pity she wants. That is not and will never be your responsibility. I think the important thing in all this is that your brother is finally getting help and support. I understand your perpetual sense of guilt and obligation towards your grandmother. It comes from a kind place, especially in a world where the elderly are so often left to fend for themselves. But she's an adult and he's a child, and one who has been dealing with this since he was a very young one. A lot of teenage boys are prone to acting on emotional pain in impulsive, illegal ways and suffering life-altering consequences for it. This all could have gone very poorly for him, but it didn't, thank God. I do pity your grandmother if pageant culture screwed up her brain so horrifically for decades, but the way she's acting, it doesn't seem feasible to help her while making sure your brother feels safe and respected. And if you're going to feel a sense of responsibility to one of these people, it should be your brother. Am I the asshole for asking that my friend give my pride flag back? I, 15 female, am a proud bisexual and am very active in my school's pride society. My friend, 16 female, is also queer and is also a part of the pride society. When I came out, my parents were very supportive and even got me a pride flag. My school had an end-of-year pride fair where everyone wore pride colors and were allowed to bring flags to celebrate the LGBTQ+ community. I brought my flag, and about half an hour in, my friend asked if she could borrow it. I said sure because I trusted her with it and thought she would give it back when we had to leave. When the event came to an end, I couldn't find her, so I assumed she forgot to give it back and had already gone home. So when I got back to my home, I texted her saying that I wanted my flag back the next day, when we had school. She just responded with, okay, and I thought that was that. The next day at school, she didn't have it and said she forgot it at home and that she would bring it next week. It was a Friday. I said that that was fine. Everyone forgets things, and I wasn't going to get upset with her for accidentally leaving it at home. However, on that Sunday, I was on Instagram and I saw her story. She was in her room and hung up on the wall was a pride flag. I was super confused because I had been in her house before, and I knew she didn't have one, and I also thought that it was kinda suspicious that she had my one, and kept forgiving to give it back. So I replied to her story and asked her if that was my pride flag on her wall. She responded and asked if it matters and that I can't gatekeep a piece of fabric. I responded saying it did matter, and I asked her if she was being serious, and I told her that I wanted it back the next day at school. She just left me on red and didn't reply. The next day at school, I went up to her while she was talking to a group of her friends and asked her for the pride flag back. And she just got really mad and said that I was being unreasonable and that she didn't understand why I needed it back so badly. I said that it was my property and that I didn't need a reason and I never said she could keep it. She then started shouting at me saying I didn't own the flag because it belongs to the community and that I just want to embarrass her in front of everyone. I was shocked because this was really out of character for her. I just said that I needed it back because my parents were the ones who bought it, not her, and that if she didn't give it back, it would technically be theft. She just gave me a filthy look and walked away. She hasn't talked to me since, and it's been almost a week. She also blocked me on WhatsApp and Instagram. Some of my friends are saying that pride flags belong to the community and that I was being selfish, while my other friends think that she is just trying to keep it and gaslight me. I'm really upset about the whole situation because I really value her friendship, but I feel really betrayed by her. Am I the asshole? Now in the comments, not the asshole. Quote, OP didn't own the flag because it belongs to the community. Wow, that is an impressive way to misconstrue that statement on the friend's part. You are not going out here claiming ownership of the flag, just this particular one that your parents bought for you. It has value for you specifically. Now, there may be a reason why she's acting that way that would make her less of an asshole, / make her behavior somewhat understandable. For example, unsupportive and controlling parents who would realize if she got her own flag. But wanting your first pride flag that your parents got for you back is not an asshole position. I agree. Time to involve your parents. And OP says, I do think I would tell her parents, but there are a couple of reasons why I haven't. 1, I don't think she's out to her dad yet. 2, I don't want to get her in trouble. And 3, her parents might take her side, and I'm sure I will never get it back. It belongs to the community. Lamau? That's the best phrase I've ever heard to justify theft. Gotta hand it to her. I laughed. No, not the asshole. If your friend doesn't want to give it back, get an adult involved because that is defo stealing. Aside from that, it's something your parents gave you as a symbol of support, so it's shitty that she wants to keep it. It's so crap. The flag represents more than just LGBT to OP. It's a literal physical embodiment of parental acceptance and support, and the friend is an asshole for essentially trying to justify theft with their Poundland attempt at playing sexuality politics. Whatever is next? You can take anything with the national flag on it because the flag symbol belongs to the people? What utter bullcrap! And now on to the update. Hi everyone. I just first want to say how much I appreciated the response on my post, and I want to thank the people who also commented and private messaged me kind things. I am very grateful for that. So on to the actual update. I read through all the comments and took many people's advice to get my parents involved. I told them what happened and they were very upset. 2 days ago, my mum took me to my friend's mum's house and she explained what happened and her mum was shocked. It turns out she told her mum that she bought the pride flag at a pride event last week and she didn't think much of it. She must have lied to her mum because there was nothing on sale at the event. We showed her mum the messages between my friend and I, and she said that she was very sorry and went to go and get the flag from my friend's room. My friend was at her dad's house, and her mum said that she was going to deal with her when she leaves her dad's house. We took the flag and thanked her and then went home. I thought that was the end of it, but today she must have got to her mum's house and found out because she messaged me saying that I was a bad friend and an even worse ally because I've dated a boy in the past. I don't need a pride flag, which really hurt my feelings. She went on to say that she was in trouble with both of her parents. I decided not to respond to any of the messages and just blocked her so I didn't add any fuel to the fire. I feel really bad because that wasn't my plan, and I just wanted the flag back. In the end, I don't think I'm going to tell anyone about the messages she sent me because I don't want to get her into more trouble. But yeah, that's my update. I'm just going to enjoy the rest of my holiday and try and prepare myself for the new school year. I live in the Southern Hemisphere and start a new grade in January. Thank you all for being so kind. And now in the comments, she got herself in trouble, not you. Also, the hell does it mean you're a bad ally because you dated a boy? First of all, you're part of the community, not an ally. Secondly, does she even know what being bi means? Congratulations on getting the flag back. Enjoy your life without that friend. There is a surprising amount of biphobia in the LGBT community, despite bi being in the name. Sadly, every group has those who have irrational hatreds. Yeah, it really sucks. If you marry the opposite gender and you're bisexual or pansexual, they consider you as heterosexual. That girl is biphobic and not your friend. Good for you for standing up for yourself. Your friend sounds really immature, like not giving something back to the point of lying, and having to get the parents of both parties involved is something that I'd expect from someone 7 years old that has stolen another kid's Pokemon cards. Also, your friend can take her gold star lesbian attitude and shoot it to the moon. You are a part of the LGBT community, not just an ally. I am glad that you got the flag back, and from an older gay, please don't listen to the bullcrap she said. You belong under the rainbow flag just like every one of us. Our next post is titled, Am I the asshole for calling my girlfriend, who hates swearing, a cow, which is censored for the B word? I, 22 male, have been dating my girlfriend Jenna, 21 female, for about 6-ish months now. I do adore her and think she is very lovely. I have 3 younger triplet brothers who are 14 male. They are all identical, and it was incredibly difficult to tell them apart at first. Hell, it still is considering they love bothering the whole family and pretending one is the other, etc., etc. Despite all that, my parents have mastered the art of telling them apart, and I'm definitely getting there. Anyways, I introduced Jenna to the family some time ago, and surprisingly enough, she managed to tell the triplets apart on multiple occasions, and she is definitely proud of it. Which I get, but she's given them nicknames based on their differences. She calls them Bones, he's slightly skinnier than the others, Freckleface, slightly more freckles, and Shaky. His hands shake a lot due to his anxiety. Now, if she kept the nicknames to herself, I wouldn't really care, but she literally refers to the boys as Bones, Freckleface, and Shaky. My brothers don't like it, especially the ones she refers to as Shaky. I don't blame them either. So I talked to Jenna about it yesterday and told her that she needs to stop. It makes my brothers uncomfortable, and I don't like it either. She said that we were all being sensitive and she was only trying to tell them apart. She asked me if they'd prefer she mix them up all the time. I tried explaining that it's not really the observations that I had a problem with. If it helped her tell them apart, that's completely fine. She can keep it in her head. But her referring to them as Bones, etc., that bothered me and them. She then said that I had no right to be bothered, which I guess makes sense, but I don't like seeing my brothers upset. I've always been protective of them, so when she said they were extremely sensitive and total crybabies, I called her a cow. Specifically, you were being a cow, or a B word. My girlfriend hates swearing, and has made it clear that she hates it, so she obviously got really mad. She said, "How do you expect me to respect your wishes if you don't respect mine?" And apparently, I'm also being hypocritical. I called the whole situation stupid and left, but my girlfriend told me that I was a major asshole and not to talk to her until I apologize. But I don't know. I don't think I did anything wrong. Maybe I shouldn't have sweared, but why is it okay for her to make fun of my brothers? My friends tell me she's being irrational, but some say she does have a point. Another said that I escalated the situation for no reason. Am I the asshole for swearing at her despite her hating it? And now in the comments, not the asshole. Your girlfriend is a mean girl. Those nicknames are neither endearing nor benign. She owes everyone involved an apology. 1000% agreed. When you call someone a name they don't like, it's not a nickname, it's bullying. My girlfriend told me that I was a major asshole and not to talk to her until I apologize. Silver lining, you don't even have to tell her that you're breaking up with her. The trash took itself out, so to speak. The friends who said she has a point and the ones who said you escalated are wrong. Not the asshole. You were standing up for your brothers and calling her out in a way that would finally get through. It sounds like you tried in a nicer way first and it made no impact. That said, anyone who disrespects your family in that way and doesn't even care when she's made aware of it, sounds like a nightmare person. You will only have heartache with someone like that. I would take this as a major red flag and really give some thought as to whether this is someone you want to be with. Not the asshole. Your girlfriend is a bully. You don't get your wishes respected if they make someone uncomfortable. You have every right to be bothered because they are your family and you don't want them treated this way. You would not be wrong for breaking up with her over this. And now onto the update. Hi guys. So I firstly wanted to thank you guys for helping me with this situation. I know to some people the answer may have been obvious, but I struggle with obvious things, and usually end up making just about a million mistakes. But yes, you'll all be glad to know that I broke up with her after work the day after I made my OG post. I read your comments and really took them in. I don't want to date a person who bullies my brothers and has no remorse for doing so, then puts the blame on me. My friends helped me with what to say, and advised me on how to break up with her quickly and without beating around the bush like I usually do, and I did it. I asked her to meet up with me at a park, and told her that I wanted to break up because of how she treats my brothers. No apologies, and just straight to the point. She tried to say something, but my friend, who was sitting a bit further away watching, called me to save me from whatever it is that she was about to say. We went home, hung out with my brothers who cheered when I told them I broke up with her, and then realized she blocked me on socials, which I guess is good. I still feel kind of sad though. I didn't at first because I knew it was the right thing to do, but then it sunk in, and I kind of felt empty. She wasn't my first girlfriend or anything, but she was the first girlfriend that didn't tease me constantly for being stupid. My friends are happy that I'm done with her though, so maybe she wasn't that nice. I don't know. But yeah, some people were shocked that I couldn't tell my brothers apart, but I can. I just struggle sometimes. I mentioned this in the comments, but I struggle with many things, and telling people apart is one of them. Some people also asked why I kept calling myself slow, dumb, etc. It's because I am. I find it difficult to understand so many things and don't do well academically. I need people to speak slowly and break things down to understand. I needed help to break up with my girlfriend, lol. The words don't really affect me, it's just how I am. Went to multiple doctors when I was younger, and no one could figure out what was wrong with me either. I even went to this program thing for years in a different state and didn't see my parents plus the triplets at all other than video calls. It sucks, but it is what it is. But yeah, the triplets, a few of my friends and I watched a film, and I just felt like making an update because I felt something other than numbness today. Despite the feelings, I'm honestly glad that I broke up with my ex-girlfriend. My brothers are really special to me, and I would do anything for them. I know I said these stupid comments don't annoy me, but it's nice that they think of me as someone they can look up to instead of, that idiot kid. Either way, thanks guys. When I say reading your comments helped, I mean it. And edit, wow, you are all really kind. A bit embarrassing to say, but I got a bit teary-eyed reading all your comments. I don't know what else to say, honestly. I'm all out of words. Thank you. And edit 2, I want to reply to all of you guys, but I'm getting a bit overwhelmed just reading, so I wanted to say thank you once again. I'm not making any promises, but I'll see if I can get tested for any disabilities. I'm a bit hesitant because I've been getting tested for most of my life, only to be told that I'm just stupid, but I guess it's hard to diagnose the stuff that I may or may not have. So I'll try to work up the courage to book an appointment soon. Thank you so much, guys. You are all very nice. And now in the comments, I'm a school teacher, and it doesn't sound like you are dumb. It sounds like you may have some facial recognition blindness. You might have a learning disability, or you might be on the autism spectrum. Sometimes people learn differently or are neurodivergent. You might try getting evaluated as an adult. Getting a diagnosis can help you understand the world better. Please don't be so hard on yourself. You obviously have a very good heart and are loyal to your brothers. I was thinking that there was likely a processing disorder, but not dumb. Maybe facial blindness, but also language, because he said people have to speak slowly. I'm not a pathologist, but from what I understand, there is therapy that you can get for these types of disorders, which help teach the person how to overcome the issue, similar to the way people with dyslexia can learn how to see things differently, processing disorder. But I hope OP truly doesn't believe he's dumb, because that would be sad. I suggest OP should speak to his parents or school about getting assessed. It seems OP has no issues with understanding complex issues when reading things. Best of luck, OP, if you read this. Struggles with processing are no joke. People generally consider me to be a fairly smart person, but sometimes I just cannot understand words that are being spoken to me. It's like people just suddenly switch into speaking another language. Usually I make up for it by semi-lip reading, but with masks everywhere these days, may the odds ever be in my favor. You sound like an awesome brother and a solid dude. Good luck with your future endeavors, OP. Quote, some people asked why I kept calling myself slow/dumb. It is because I am. The problem with those words is that they are often used to hurt people instead of to describe people. Would you call someone with a learning disability or a mental disability stupid, slow, or dumb? Probably not, because you wouldn't want to be hurtful, so why be hurtful to yourself? We all have different abilities, different areas where we excel, and where we need help. Some have a harder hill to climb. You are no less worthy than anyone else. Am I the asshole for putting extra salt in my sister-in-law's food? So I, female 34, have a sister-in-law, female 25, let's call her H. She's been together with my brother J, male 32, for 3 years now. We were born in Europe, but originally are from the Middle East. H is born and raised in Europe. Our religion and part of our culture is different from hers, but we didn't mind because she's a nice girl and we are open-minded. She really tries her best to please my brother in every way. She's learning Arabic, asking about the culture, and lately she started looking up recipes from our country too. My brother is very happy with everything she does, and if he's happy, then we are too. Last week they came to visit our whole family for lunch. Our family is pretty big, with many cousins, kids, brothers, sisters, parents, and grandparents. Most of them were there. H made a meal which is really popular in the country that we're originally from. Everyone was amazed by it. She left it in the kitchen with all the other dishes for later. Well, to be fair, I'm cooking since I was 14 years old, and I'm a pretty good cook too. I was interested how her food tasted, so I tried it. It wasn't bad, but I thought maybe I could fix it up with a little salt and spices. When we served the food for lunch, everyone complimented H about the dish and how well she has done it. Here is where I might be the asshole. I told everyone that I fixed the food up with some salt and spices. Jay got very angry and started to argue with me in front of everyone. He told me there was nothing wrong with H's meal and I shouldn't be disrespectful. But I believe in constructive criticism, and I was trying to help her learn. After that, they left, and I saw H crying in the car. My family told me I was an asshole and embarrassed our guest. I feel pretty bad. Am I the asshole? Now in the comments, you're the asshole. Seriously, dude. Constructive criticism would be talking to her in private and making suggestions in a friendly way like, hey, your ex was really good. Might I make a suggestion to make it more authentic? If yes, try adding a little more salt and X kind of spice. That's constructive because it helps her learn and doesn't embarrass her. What you did was 1. Mess with her dish without her knowledge or permission, then 2. Publicly steal credit for its success in a way that told everyone it wasn't good until you messed with it. You took something that was about her attempt at making your cultural food, and both made it about you instead, and also insulted her efforts at replicating your food. What you said, between the lines, was that H's cooking just wasn't good enough to eat as she had prepared it, and she needed a real pro like yourself to fix it. That is a serious insult to her. So your family is correct. You were an asshole and you did seriously embarrass H. Try to imagine what it would be like if the tables were reversed. You put a lot of time and effort into making H's cultural food. Her family said that it was really good, only to have one of H's relatives stand up and say it sucked until they messed with it without your knowledge. You would be pretty sad too, right? Always think about how the other person will feel before you act. You should feel bad. You're the asshole. You praised yourself a good cook, and you decided to add spices so you can also get recognition for a dish that you did not make. Get over yourself, and try to butt out of situations that have nothing to do with you. You're the asshole. You could have easily salted and seasoned your own portion and let everyone else decide how they wanted theirs to taste. You injected your own opinion into everyone else's food without their knowledge or permission, and then to top it off, you tried to claim ownership of the taste when you were a very minor participant of the process. Next time, if there is one, worry about your own plate, rather than everyone else's. And back up to the post, there is an edit. Okay, so I see everyone thinks I'm the asshole, but just to clear things up, I didn't say it in a bad way. I told her, I tried it myself, and for the first try, it tasted really good, but I thought it could use some salt and spices, so I put some more if you don't mind. Next time, it'll be even better. And I didn't want to steal the spotlight, I just wanted to be honest. Edit 2, I apologized the next day and told her it's a misunderstanding, but my brother can't let this go. And now onto the update. Thank you for all of your comments and all the criticism, even though it was hard to admit first, but I really messed up. After my post, I started to think things through and had a long conversation with my grandparents. A lot of trauma unfolded, and I realized why I was being like this with my sister-in-law. When I was around her age, I had a similar personality to her. Shy, kind to everyone, always smiling and being very positive. Then bad things happened and I started to change. I became this anxious, negative person who I am today. When she became part of the family, I realized how she was, and then thought she needs to toughen up. I saw my old self in her, and thought if she will stay like this, she'll get hurt. It was something in my subconscious. I didn't even think about how toxic I was actually being to her. I hurt her, I hurt my brother, and I embarrassed my family. I wanted to fix things, apologize, and make sure nothing like this happens again. So I invited her over for lunch. Thankfully, she said yes. I looked up some recipes from her country and got to cooking. When she arrived, the food was ready. She tasted it and jokingly said, "It could use some salt and spices." Oh my lord, I deserved that. Then we had a conversation about our issues and cried. It was so wholesome. We promised each other we will cook something together every weekend. Then we went to my parents' house, and almost everyone was there who came to visit last time. I have apologized for the ones I've hurt, and promised nothing like this will ever happen again. They forgave me. We had a good time after, lots of laughs, tea, and food. Before they left, I pulled my brother to the side and gave him my phone with a confirmation email. I rented the most romantic place ever for him and my sister-in-law to go and celebrate Christmas together. We will decorate the place with Jay in the next few days. And finally, I've decided to go to therapy and work on my issues, for the sake of myself and my family too. These few days were intense, and this was a huge wake-up call. One thing is for sure, I wouldn't want to lose the ones I love the most. Thank you, Reddit. And now in the comments, admitting that you're wrong is so hard, but to go the extra mile and try to fix your wrong and go to therapy to work on yourself is amazing. Good for you, OP. If we had more people like you, the world would be a better place. Does this update rub anyone the wrong way, or is it just me? The first half of this just sounded like a pity party. No, my immediate reaction was that it seemed manipulative. Like, how convenient your excuse for acting poorly turns the sympathy back on you. Our next post is titled, "Am I the asshole for turning down a Christmas dinner invitation from my mum's family?" So I, 21 female, am currently in university and live in a dorm, using my own money and everything. My mum, 40 female, had me when she was 19. My dad joined the military to provide, and so he was gone most of the time. My parents split up when I was young, and my mum and I moved across the country. My mum started dating again when I was a teenager, and it was like I became invisible. When she married Gregory, 50 male, it became even different. I grew really resentful when my mum had a new baby, and I'll admit that it wasn't healthy, and neither was my attitude. When the time for university came, I got a good enough scholarship and moved out. I am honestly surprised they noticed I was even gone. I've gotten 2 texts from my mum a year. Happy birthday and Happy New Year's. Only this year did I get a 3rd text, and that's just to announce that I have a new baby sister. So I got an email the other day that was pretty much an invite to a Christmas dinner that they were hosting, and it seems like a lot of extended family are going to be there. I don't want to be there, so I declined the invite. Yesterday, I got a phone call from my mum crying about me deciding not to come for the dinner and really wanting to see me there. Then Gregory took the phone and all but called me an asshole while scolding me. It's made me feel a little bad because she's still my mom, and I still feel like I should go just for her sake. Now in the comments, not the asshole. They weren't there for you when you needed them. That's literally a parent's job. Yup, not the asshole. She's crying and he's mad because your absence at Christmas will raise a ton of questions about their parenting, or lack thereof, that they aren't comfortable answering because it'll make them look bad. And OP says, I doubt it. The entire extended family knows, and they aren't hiding that I'm not part of the family according to my grandmother. And she's shown me Facebook photos where they've had captions like, complete family and other stuff. And while my grandmother has said that she'd like me to reconcile, she thinks it's better for me if I don't. As much as I dislike Gregory, I do know him well enough to know that he does love my mum and hates seeing her cry. As for mum, I'm sure she does want to see me for me, or because she feels bad, but that doesn't mean she deserves it. She didn't even invite me with a phone call or a text, just an impersonal evite. I really do feel terrible for making her cry though, and do wish that I hadn't done that. You didn't make her cry. She cried out of her own feelings of guilt, sadness, or whatever. You were not responsible for her feelings. Oh, so it might not be that your mum wants to play happy family, but more about your mum realizing that hosting with a baby is a lot of work, and she's looking for a babysitter/maid/cook to help her with everything. If she wants to see you so badly, there are 364 other days out of the year that she could be a mum too. And OP replies, Gregory didn't let me near the last baby that he and my mum had, and that's when I lived there. I doubt he'd want to now. Info? There are 2 babies? Where's the older one? Older one is a boy that they had while I still lived with him. This new one is a girl that they apparently had this year. Only 2 texts from your mum each year? No phone calls until now? Not the asshole. You do what suits you. They've treated you like an acquaintance since she started dating and eventually married. It would be only normal for you to not wish to attend. Why waste a holiday with people who treat you that way? Your mother's husband's insults prove how he's felt all along. All the best to you. Absolutely not the asshole. Just because they want to play happy family for the other family members doesn't mean that you need to play too. I bet your other family members don't know that you are estranged from your mother and her husband, like making excuses when you aren't home for birthdays and stuff because you're busy with uni. And now that the others will be coming, there will be questions if you don't come around because family and stuff. Let me tell you, if you don't want to go, then don't go. Don't let them guilt trip you. You owe them, or especially your mother, nothing. And now onto the update. So my mum's Christmas party went and passed this past Friday, and I figured I'd make this post as an update. Like I thought, my mum phoned me back because my grandma made her. She asked to meet me in person, but I said I didn't feel comfortable. She said she could bring Gregory or Grandma if it would help. I said hell no to Gregory, which surprised her, but I did agree to Grandma. After snow issues, we met in a coffee shop with Grandma, claiming she would be a mediator. I looked at my post to see your guys' advice to, guide me before I left. I admitted to Mum that I didn't want to see her, but thought this call would clear the air. I asked why barely only 2 texts a year, and she said Gregory told her college kids didn't need their mums, and she would be interfering. I asked why she couldn't at least phone me to invite me, and she said Gregory told her sending an evite made me on the same level as other relatives, and I would like being respected. That made no frickin' sense to me, and I got so mad. I asked why the F she even wanted me there when she would treat me like extended family. She told me when I was gone, seeing how Gregory treated their kids made her realize that she had neglected me. She had been going to therapy and wanted us to mend things. I pointed out listening to Gregory about me then was the dumbest possible thing she could do since he never liked me. I knew that I'd start crying like a little cow, so I started ranting about how I'd rather not meet my half-siblings since I know I'd resent them. They don't deserve that. How my extended family also cast me out, how everyone blamed therapy not working on me. My mum was shocked and even more shocked when my grandma took my side and everything. I told her I was really sorry that I made her cry, and it didn't make me feel better. She forgave me on that, but told me that it wasn't my fault and she deserved it. My mum asked if I'd ever come home, and I said that Gregory would either need to apologize or die. That was a bit harsh since I don't want him to die, so I said if he leaves forever is good too. My mum said she understood, started crying, apologized like 100 times, and asked if she could text or phone me more often. I said sure because it still makes me feel like crap to see my mum cry. Since then, Mum has texted me and called me every day, but hasn't tried to force things. I did not go to the party since Gregory has not apologized. Grandma has been staying with them and things aren't too good between them. They had big fights over him refusing to say sorry and how they treated me and aren't talking. I don't want my mum's marriage to end for the sake of her other kids, but I can't lie, it feels good to not be ignored. Apparently my mum wants to meet on Christmas or Christmas Eve. As long as Grandma comes, I'll let her, but I don't know if we'll ever be close again. So thanks guys. Your advice really did help, and I'm feeling better mentally. And now in the comments, good job sticking to your boundaries. I'm happy your mum is showing growth in realizing what was wrong, and I hope your relationship improves even if you are not super close. Also, a hell yeah to your amazing grandma for sticking by your side and acting as a mediator. I hope you have a good Christmas and that things keep getting better for you. And OP replies, Merry Christmas to you too. I don't know if things will ever get better, but her at least acknowledging she was wrong means something to me, even if I don't know what it is. And I really do love my grandma, and I'm happy that other people think she is great too. Yeah, I'm loving your grandma too, but honestly, the first part of this update completely pissed me off. Gregory. I was thinking, does this mum have the basic common sense to wipe her ass after a dump, or does she get or follow Gregory's advice for that too? But she surprised me. She seems to genuinely want a relationship and is taking steps to make that happen. Best wishes, OP. I'm glad your mother is understanding that she did a disservice to you and agrees that she neglected you. That's showing a lot more understanding and contrition than many mothers we see on here manage. I'd encourage you to see if you can build a relationship with your mother now, one that probably won't include Gregory. If it's just painful for you, then you can cut it off. But it sounds like something more positive than that is possible. Please don't feel like you owe it to your past self to cut your mother off or keep her at an arm's length if she is positive in your life now. And OP replies, I don't see myself ever being around her if Grandma isn't there too. I'm happy that she knows that she was wrong, but I don't know if I can trust her enough to give her a second chance to be my mom. And as for Gregory, I think she's finally got the message that I hate him. It sounds like your mom is in a really abusive and controlling relationship. Those are hard to get out from under. While I'm not excusing her behavior, maybe try to see her in that light, and that her actually reaching out to you and willing to meet you on your terms is a huge step for someone in her position. And OP replies, she didn't start treating me bad when she and Gregory got together. That started before, and he treated her like an angel when I lived with them. Maybe it's changed, but that's how it is. Would I be the asshole for setting limits on my roommate's kids' food time? I'm going to preface this by saying I've struggled with eating disorder my whole life, and haven't been able to get as much help as I should have, so I may have a warped understanding here. I moved in mutually with a roommate who has 3 children, ages 2, 4, and 5. The way she feeds the kids is open, or as she puts it, letting them graze. She'll fix full meals, set them on the table, and the kids will come by and grab a forkful or 2 at a time. The food will be out until the next meal is prepared, even overnight. My issues with this are twofold. I really don't think it's healthy for kids to eat food that's been sitting out for hours and hours. I'm not an expert on food safety, but chicken can't be good at room temperature for that long. Secondly, there are so many flies. It drives me insane the number of flies in the house. It's gross. Early on, I had thought that food was left out mistakenly and threw it out as they had left for the day. The kids had a temper tantrum, and my roommate said she feared I would pass my warped sense of food onto the kids. That's the last thing that I want. But I can't live with the flies. I've thought about putting an ultimatum. Either serve the kids smaller portions so there's not full meals sitting unattended, which to me sounded like it would be healthier, leaving the rest of the meal refrigerated, or cover them on the table to get rid of the flies. But I'm also aware that I'm rather messed up with food understanding, so I want to make sure that I'm not being a jerk here. Now in the comments, not the asshole. Leaving uncovered food simply sitting on the table for hours and hours so her kids can graze on cold, fly-covered food is gross. Super gross. They must get regular tummy aches from spoiled food, so maybe that's why they're not big on eating. This is so bizarre, and Mum needs to give the kids structure and reasonable rules. My kids are slow eaters. We eat as a family, but if they are not done within 35 minutes, leftovers are refrigerated and they can have a snack later if they are still hungry. I tend to do that to myself. My dad and I will go out to eat and I'll just slowly eat my food, take it home, and within an hour or so just eat the rest of it. I cannot imagine just leaving it out for hours on end to graze on. Not the asshole. That's really odd, unhealthy in terms of the kids' relationship with food, and unhygienic. Nothing to do with your issues with food, and don't let her make you feel it is. I finally get to say it. Rumi is actually gaslighting OP by using OP's food issues to dismiss their very reasonable issue with this system. You would not be the asshole. This isn't you pushing your eating disorder on someone else's kids. This is a health and safety issue. Tell your roommate the flies are disgusting, and if she can't keep the food covered in the fridge, this living situation isn't going to work out. This is honestly crazy because the problem could so easily be solved. Just put the food in an airtight container and move the container to the fridge after a reasonable amount of time. The kids can still open the container and snack when they're hungry, but you're not attracting flies. And now onto the update. After reading responses, I sat my roommate down again and said that the food being out and uncovered was a hard limit for me. I volunteered to buy fly guards or coverable Tupperware dishes, but she refused. Then I sent links to food safety information that a few posters had sent, but this enraged her. After that, it seemed to get worse. I left for 2 days to find the same meal on the table as when I left, along with several other plates of more recent food. Literally mold and rot. After this, I sort of realized how much she was pushing boundaries around the house otherwise. Like, kids are messy, but she'd encourage extreme messes and not clean up afterwards. For example, making Halloween dress-up costumes, but just having them drape themselves in rolls of toilet paper and then just leaving the torn-up TP all over the house. She would also help herself to a lot of my belongings. In the end, I told her this wasn't working out. A lot of people assumed I'd moved in with her, but actually, it's my house. We both moved in at the same time with her as my roommate. She isn't happy because it's hard for her to find affordable housing with the kids, but I was at my wit's end. I left her a glowing review with her new rental agency. I have since moved in one adult roommate and will be taking a second one in the new year. It is so relatively peaceful, and with 2 adults paying for the same space, I'll have a lot of extra money. The issues aren't over, she still has a bunch of things at my house, but things seem mostly resolved. Adding, I'm getting flack for leaving her a good review, which I understand based on how I worded it, but nothing I said to the leasing agency was a lie. She paid rent/bills on time, which was the big question. I also said the kids were well behaved. They are. And the older enrolled in school. Now in the comments, wow, she did all of this knowing it was your house and not caring about your rules? She's a bigger asshole than I thought. Also, I'll do what I want. No. Evict her. Surprised Pikachu face. She isn't happy because it's hard for her to find affordable housing with the kids. Well then maybe she shouldn't be such a shitty roommate. Good for you. I'm sure she considers it to be 100% your fault too, but who cares? Now, speaking as a landlord myself, familiarize yourself with your state's abandoned property laws. Give her whatever notice is required, keep proof that you did, and the day the deadline expires, just pitch it all. She can scream and rant and even sue, but she will lose. You don't have to keep her crap there any longer than the law requires. Call CPS. Her children are about to get food poisoning or worse at any minute. Thank you. Everyone's jumping on the glowing review part, which, yeah, but I haven't seen much about the fact that she's literally leaving moldy and rotting food out for her kids to eat. Well, you know, as a roommate, she initiated an innovative in-house composting program. Whoa, she really is ahead of her time, that one. Our next post is titled, Am I the Asshole for Costing My Coworkers Their Bonus? So I work for one of those little pop-up urgent care clinics as a front desk receptionist. My job is to check people in, triage and collect copay, and handle insurance. So lately, on looking at a bunch of the patients' charts, I've noticed that they are getting their copay refunded as a credit on their account. I called our billing department, and they said to not take the copay and to apply the credit instead. However, my regional director called me later on, angry that I wasn't collecting the copay and that I still should collect despite us owing the patient money because it looks bad not to and it's too much effort, her words, to screen for credit balances on our audits. So she's taking away the bonuses for the front desk because this has skewed us below our percent of collections. I think it is stealing and my co-worker agrees, but the regional director is angry because she has lost the bonus as well for our clinic. Am I the asshole for refusing to comply? The rest of my office is split 50-50 on this, so I'm curious of the opinions of all of you who are on the outside of the situation. Now in the comments, not the asshole. You are being told to rob your clients. It's not okay to rob people just because you get tossed a few bucks to rob them. Perhaps direct this conversation to the local authorities. And OP replies, "Thank you for your response. I'm not sure if the local authorities will do much since this is at corporate level and this clinic is in a small town. After I find a new job, I'll probably report them though, if I can find the right authority to report them to." Not the asshole. I'd be livid if I had a credit on my account and got charged. You did the right thing. Bonuses shouldn't be based on collecting copays. That's awful. And OP says, "Thank you for your response. That is similar to my line of thinking, and it's frustrating seeing a lot of people who could use that money elsewhere get charged another $75 copay just to treat the flu. Others feel that it's not morally my place, so I should just follow along. It sucks that your bonus is based on this. However, if you were the patient and found out that your account was credited instead of them sending you a refund, which you rightly deserve, wouldn't you be upset? I know I would. What they are doing is unethical, not the asshole." And OP replies, "Thank you for your response. I'd be pretty livid myself. Others feel that they would be mad at the corporation and not me, so I should just follow along, which is why I was a bit confused as to whether my stance is okay or not." And now onto the update. So I read all of your comments, and though it wasn't a popular thread, I feel I owe you all an update. I walked into work this morning with a negative performance review based completely on my personality and how I've caused strife in this clinic for not charging copay to people with credits on their accounts. It was sent via email and not in person. So I quit and will be reporting her once my last paycheck goes through. My co-worker who also works on the front desk has put in her notice. My regional director sent a text asking to talk things through and fix things. She deleted her performance review and the state director called offering me a bonus to stay. But I think I've just lost trust in the place, so I no longer work at the Speedy Stride Clinic. Not the real name. Thank you all for your advice on how to report and your opinions. I found value in all of them. Now in the comments, you should tell the state director and the other proper authorities that the regional director causes you strife after emailing you a negative performance review based on the possibly illegal billing practices that you have uncovered at that place. Good for you, OP. I hope you find a better place to work that is not a thinly veiled front for illegal activities. You're leaving anyways, OP. Why try to preserve this bridge? That regional director already hates you. Best to report them and possibly get them fired and blacklisted for this, that way she can't affect your future employment. And also maybe helping to make sure the next person who has this job isn't treated the same way. Somebody in corporate just reamed that regional director for admitting to fraud in an email. Lol, I love it when assholes make it easy to give them their just desserts. That's what I was thinking. Someone higher up heard about what happened and the performance review and is scrambling to avoid legal trouble because of the regional director. So let me get this straight. You uncover a probably illegal billing practice. If not illegal, at least unethical. You stop doing this practice, your grand boss tells you to do it anyways in email. You call multiple departments in your organization to determine if there is policy, and they support your correct billing. Your grand boss retaliates by giving you a negative review and retracting your annual bonus. Sounds like you may have grounds to sue. Trust is huge. If you don't have it, anything could happen at any time. Our next post is titled, "Am I the asshole for yelling after my father brought my half-sister into our family therapy?" So I didn't even know my dad could do this. I'm so pissed about it, but I also feel really terrible. So yesterday was family counseling night, and I, 18 female, enjoy going because it gets all the secrets out and it makes me feel happy and like my family is normal. But my mum, 39 female, didn't go because my cousin gave birth and she wanted to be there to see her. So it was just me and my dad, 44 male, going, which is fine. We've been there alone a lot of time before. But waiting in the counselor's office already was my half-sister Eliza, 15 female, and I don't know why, it just made me upset seeing her there. I didn't not participate in the counseling session, but it made me really sad and mad at the same time, and the counselor figured out what was going on, but my dad didn't, and I couldn't even talk properly. It felt like Eliza was trying to make me look like a villain for not letting people know that she was my sister, which I never said she couldn't tell, just that I didn't want her to, and not wanting to hang out with her, which I don't. When we went back home, my dad asked me what was wrong and asked why I was so quiet, and I just yelled at him that he shouldn't have brought her without asking, and I felt like he broke my trust. He didn't say anything, but I could tell I hurt him. I just went to bed after crying. He came into my room later to talk, but I pretended to be asleep, and he kissed me on the forehead and left. I know I made him feel really bad, and I haven't seen him all day. He's over visiting my baby half-brother. My mum told me that I shouldn't have used the words that I did, since I'm 18 now, and I just feel like a major asshole about it all. Edit. Since somebody suggested that I add this, my dad is a serial cheater and has 4 kids, soon to be 5, out of his marriage to my mum, but I still love him a lot because he's a very good dad. What? What is going on here? Am I in crazy town? How is that normalized? Now in the comments, not the asshole. This therapy is a safe space for you, and he should have asked if it was alright to bring her. And if your answer was still no, he needs to respect that. Therapy is a space where you can go and work through your problems, not be blindsided. The man is married with 4 kids, soon to be 5 outside of his marriage. He has clearly never met a boundary he wouldn't cross. Not the asshole. Absolutely. No one except the dad is the asshole in this situation. I don't know, maybe mum for carrying on with this farce like nothing to see here, while setting up her child to carry all this upset, while still believing that he is in any way a good father. Way to model a healthy, loving relationship for your child. Both parents are assholes at this point. 5 kids out of the marriage is way past family therapy. Mum sticking with this relationship probably has a lot to do with why they're in family therapy. Combine that with dad's serial cheating, and this is not a healthy environment for a kid. I looked at your posting history, and it's pretty clear not the asshole. Your father should not have cheated, or since now it's kinda too late for that, he should not force you to deal with your half-siblings, and especially not as a surprise in your therapy session. Your half-sister is also not the asshole though, and if you took out your anger on her, you would be the asshole. And OP replies, I go to an exclusive all-girls academy, and my half-sister transferred there at the start of this semester. She only started recently because she was in the hospital before. If she hadn't approached me, I don't think he would have tried this, but I haven't gotten angry at her. I've always been polite. Oh my god, this is just onions, isn't it? We're just peeling back layers of this situation. Now she was in hospital? Oh my god, I hope she's alright. I would suggest that you update your post to reflect the situation with your dad being a serial cheater, and that you have multiple half-siblings that you don't share a home/life with, and don't really know well. That is actually very relevant context for this discussion. Curious as to whether or not your parents are still together/living in the same house and trying to salvage the immediate family, or if they're split up, because that also seems relevant. And now, on to the update. So, just to give everybody an update, my dad didn't come home all day on Saturday because my baby half-brother was in the hospital. Apparently things are really bad with him, and the day after he came back from the hospital, we had a big talk about what happened. I want to thank everyone who pointed out that I was right to be upset, but I had things to think about regarding Eliza because she was hurting too. First, Dad apologized for not telling me that he was bringing Eliza into the counseling session and that he wouldn't ever do anything like that again. I apologized for swearing while yelling, and he forgave me. When he asked me if I understood that Eliza was hurting too, I told him I did, and he suggested we have our own counseling. I told him that I'd think on it. The second thing that he told me is there's a chance that my baby half-brother might die, and that news put the things I said in perspective for him. He told me he'd already talked about it with my mum and his mistress, but was asking me for permission because he hurt me the most and never should have. He wanted to know if I'd be okay with him going to inpatient rehab for sex addiction, which I didn't know was a thing. I said yes because I hope it'll help him, even though I know that I'm going to miss him a lot. Like some of you suggested, I agreed to counseling with Eliza on Wednesdays. We've had only one session now, and even though we aren't friends or anything, I think she gets why I feel the way I do, and she apologized to me because she didn't know how hurt I was because of Dad. After she confessed being hospitalized made her feel normal since Dad visited her every day, I felt bad and apologized for not having cared about her. She still feels upset about me not wanting to let her tell people that we're sisters, but told me she is fine since we are doing counseling and we might one day get close. I don't know if we will, but at least we won't hate each other. I also took Eliza with me to visit our baby half-brother in the hospital, and it surprised his mum that we came there. I'm still not forgiving her though. He's a really cute kid, and I regret not seeing him much before. It's hard to say, but I originally made this Reddit account to rant about my half-siblings, but you guys really helped make a difference in the way that I was approaching this and what I'll use this account for later on. Now in the comments, I am so very sorry about your little brother. I'm glad you found a way to exist with Eliza. I wish you well. Is your father going to get a vasectomy anytime soon then? This is the beginning of a happy ending. I hope your half-brother will be okay, and thanks for the update. OP says, I hope he gets better too, but I don't know. Apparently it's getting worse and I'm freaking out right now. One day at a time. Take every moment for what it is, and allow yourself to feel the bad as well as the good. That must feel scary. Know my fingers are crossed for you, and that you've handled the situation with a lot of grace and understanding. You're a smart person, and I hope you'll continue to grow this way, and I hope your little brother gets better, as that is awful and it should not happen to anyone. And OP replies, thanks, I went to visit him last night, and I'll go again tonight. I'm feeling more calm now, but it's still scary to even think about that. That's why I'm on Reddit during class. Am I the asshole for paying for my dog's surgery, but not my mother's? So I, female 23, was raised by two parents who believe that being a parent ends once the child turns 18. The moment I turned 18, I was forced to pay rent and for all the other costs associated with my survival, if you will. I ended up moving out until I graduated high school and moved into my college dorm. Me and my parents have monthly contact, but nothing deep or below surface level. My mother has a mass that needs to be removed and I believe is cancerous. My parents have good health insurance, but will still have significant out-of-pocket costs. My father called me and told me that they needed help with money. The whole, she's your mother and would do the same for you kinda talk. I did want to help, but told him that I didn't have the money readily available, only in my savings, so I didn't end up contributing, and they got a loan, I believe. Last week, my dog needed surgery to remove a foreign body that she swallowed. It happened so fast that I ended up using a large chunk of my savings to pay for it. My father found out and called me awful names and said that I'd rather my mother die or be in debt and put an animal's life over my own mother. I didn't agree and have been ignoring his calls since, but other family members are messaging me because they think that I don't care if my mother lives or dies. And now in the comments, not the asshole. Your dog is your dependent, your parents are not. While I'm all about supporting family, these people effectively raised you until 18 and then waved you off. They did the bare minimum, and I don't know why they're expecting more from you, to be honest. But we would do the same for you. You actually made it quite clear that you wouldn't. This exactly. If they hassle you again, use this word for word. not the asshole. Your savings are there for your emergencies, not your parents'. Who kicks out their 18-year-old high school student before they even graduate? I thought that wasn't legal. And where was that "she's your mother and would do the same for you" when you were starting out? Had you wiped out your savings for your mum, I doubt they would have helped out when you needed your money for your dog, not the asshole. And OP replies, technically I left, so I legally would have been a runaway or something. I think it is illegal though. I have 2 teenage daughters, and I can honestly tell you that being a parent does not end the minute they turn 18. Hell, I still call my mum when I'm sick and I'm 40. Plus, as a mum, I don't want my motherhood to end when they turn 18. I love my kids and they're freaking awesome. We are close, and I hope on some level we always are. I also hope they know they can always call me, and I'll always be there for them the best I can. Not the asshole. The animal that can't take care of itself, that you've committed to taking care of, always wins out over the mother who only took care of you as long as was legally necessary, and at her age should have the money saved to cover her max OOP for the year. And even if you didn't have a dog, there is no shame about prioritizing your financial well-being. Don't feel guilty at all, right? If OP hands over their savings and falls on hard times, it's not like those parents are going to help out. Or that they've helped OP be in a place in their life where they feel they can be financially secure. A lot of parents seem to get super entitled about their kids' money after not setting them up to succeed. It's a little mind-boggling. Not the asshole. Your parents had other options, which they proved by being able to get the surgery without your assistance. Your dog only has you. Adopting a pet is a commitment to care for them. And now to the update. Thank you for all the responses and helping me feel a little bit better about this situation. My dog is recovering well, and I'll be retiring this post. Thank you. Our next post is titled, "Am I the asshole for refusing to reschedule my doctor's appointment?" I'm experiencing some health problems and have been waiting to get an MRI scheduled for months. In December 2021, I was finally scheduled and let my supervisor know that I would need an afternoon off on the day of the MRI. She was fine with it since I gave her over a month notice and blocked the time off on my schedule. Fast forward to today, my supervisor just found out my coworkers and I need a particular training that is being offered on the same day and time as my MRI. She is telling me I have to reschedule the MRI, but if I do that, it will likely be several more months before I can get it done. I told her rescheduling would put me in a very bad place, and she just said, "I know, I'm sorry." Would I be the asshole if I refuse to reschedule? I hate being in a position where I have to choose between my health and my job. And now in the comments, do not reschedule. It is not your problem, and someone's training doesn't take priority. Refuse and stand your ground, not the asshole. If there is anything we've learned in these times, it's that your health comes first. Yep, I was super ill for the past decade and somehow struggled on and made the same sacrifices as OP is considering, and it's just not worth it in the long run. Your health is one of the most important things that you can have, so it's best to take care of yourself. Not the asshole. Your health is more important. Ask if your boss is willing to accept liability for your delay in your diagnosis and treatment. Don't you dare reschedule. Even a regular appointment I wouldn't. But this took long enough to get on the books, so no, your boss needs to reschedule. Yes, medical specialist appointments can take forever, especially right now. OP should have the MRI. The work training can be rescheduled for another time. Also, it could just be one of the quirks of the health system in the area, but the long wait to get this appointment makes me think it's a specialized MRI. With the state that American healthcare is in right now, there is really no guarantee that they will even be able to reschedule another one, due to loss of staff, etc. Not the asshole. Tell your boss you tried, but the new reschedule is 6 months out, and your doctor said no to that. A little white lie. Document the detail in case you need it in the future. And OP says, so far all the communication has been through email, so I'll be able to provide proof if it comes to that. I work in a doctor's office. Don't reschedule your MRI. If need be, contact your doctor, and they can usually write up a quick note saying that you're in need of the MRI and you shouldn't reschedule. And now update/edit to add, just wanted to add that my supervisor is actually pretty awesome, and I love her. That's why I feel like the asshole for not rescheduling. I have no doubt that the only reason she asked me to reschedule is because her supervisor told her to. Another ETA, I have asked if there are alternate times and dates for the training, and there are not. Those telling me to work half a day to attend the training, I am working half a day. My MRI is at 2:45, so I will leave work at 2:30. The MRI is with and without contrast, which will last 2 to 2.5 hours. For those of you saying there is no way it will take that long, I am getting imaging of my brain and my full spine with and without contrast. It's going to take a while, and if you don't believe me, an MRI tech in this group verified it in the comments. The training is 4 to 5 p.m. We close at 5, so there is no way for me to attend that particular training. I have already told my supervisor that I will not reschedule and have requested a note from my doctor. Final update, they are going to record the training for me. I am still going to follow up on FMLA to avoid this in the future. Apparently that was not my final update because people are getting pissed at me for leaving work at 2:30 when my appointment is at 2:45. My work is directly across the street from the hospital I am getting my MRI at. I regularly walk over to the hospital to get coffee from their cafe. It takes 2 minutes to get there on foot. I am able to do my check-in paperwork online, including submitting my ID and insurance card. All I have to do is sign in and go back to the imaging center. I cannot respond anymore because I've been temporarily banned for using the middle finger emoji when one of y'all called me a doormat. Thanks to everyone who was genuinely concerned for me and offered advice. Am I the asshole for wanting to play D&D online with headphones in? My 34 female partner, 34 male of 15 years, is blaming me for his ongoing depression because I play D&D online with headphones in. I've played D&D for years, one casual homebrew campaign and one recent Curse of Strahd campaign. My partner always said that he wants lots of kids, and last year our first was born. I stopped playing until I wasn't breastfeeding anymore, and then attempted to return to the homebrew game one Saturday a fortnight. While I was pregnant, he was suddenly demanded to meet everyone that I was playing with and see where we were playing. When I tried to return after giving birth, he resented me going to the game, would often try to delay me going, and would sometimes call and interrupt the game, for minor issues. On the Saturdays I did not play, I was in charge of baby's care and bedtime while he had drinks and games with his friends. The Strahd game started after baby was born and initially was played in our home, but became impossible for me to concentrate on the game with the baby around, so we moved to playing at a different house. He still seemed to be leaving on time and would call and interrupt the game, even if the baby was with a sitter. With COVID, I have been playing online in a different room with my headphones in. Usually, I arrange for the grandparents to have the baby, because otherwise I still find myself interrupted too much to focus on the game, max 5 hours. 2 weeks ago, the game was cancelled, but the group still chatted. I had headphones in, and my partner kept trying to interrupt and ask me things, which splits my focus, so I was getting annoyed. Afterwards, we talked about it, and he said that he doesn't like the headphones because it excludes him. It's making him chronically depressed, and that there is no point in getting therapy for the depression if I'm going to keep doing the thing that causes it, which is isolating myself and putting the headphones on to play D&D. The following week, I tried without headphones, but it's so hard to focus on the game, especially around him and baby, that I was brought to tears, and we only played for 2 hours, but he was still unhappy about it. He says I need to adjust my standards about how I play, but I want to be able to focus and immerse properly in the game. I've already changed the hours that I play and tried without headphones, but it doesn't work. At the same time, he's been increasingly concerned about IT security, so I currently can't use my laptop. He reset my iPad and phone number multiple times, and he wants me to get a new phone number. I've also, at his request, reduced my work hours so I'm more readily available for the baby, even though I had full-time work and he is technically unemployed but trading crypto. I changed what I can change for him, but I don't want to give up D&D or play in a less engaged way because I enjoy it so much and lean on it for my mental health. I want him to get therapy, but have I been the asshole? OP has offered the following explanation for why they think they might be the asshole. He says I am causing his depression by excluding him from my D&D games. I am annoyed when he interrupts them, but I don't want to change how I play. Now in the comments, your husband needs therapy. These requests are unreasonable. He gets to have private time with his friends, but you don't? He's refusing therapy because he doesn't want his therapist to help him actually deal with his attachment issues. He'd rather you just appease him. On top of that, he's being very controlling with your technology. That's a massive red flag. Either he's up to something illegal, or he's installing spyware to track you and listen in. Or he's just extremely paranoid with high anxiety, which he needs help for. I don't want to say that these are abuser red flags, but he is being controlling, especially about electronics, and he's isolating you from friends. I'd start locking the door in addition to putting in headphones, and then offer to stop locking it if he gets therapy. Not the asshole. I'll say it. These are abuser red flags, and I'll also add that he is pressuring her to reduce her hours at work and possibly leave her job, which is an indicator of financial abuse. I know someone that this happened to, and her partner did almost the exact same things in the exact same way, throwing tantrums anytime she spent time with her friends until she didn't have friends anymore, pressuring her to leave her job even though she was the breadwinner, before escalating to full-on physical violence towards her and her children. The impacts are huge even decades later. Not the asshole. He's isolating you. It's abusive. He's abusive. You need to get yourself to a safe place away from him. That's my feeling too. His messing around with OP's electronics is a major red flag, and wanting her to change her phone number. If she does, he'll probably demand none of her friends are allowed to have the new number. His depression comes from him, not you having a life outside of him. He just sounds jealous of your playing. He may be excluded, but that's a him problem, not anything to do with you. Not the asshole start to finish, sincerely someone living with depression. Totally agree. When I'm depressed, I sometimes have these feelings about my lovely fiancé. If only he martyred himself and had no life, I wouldn't be depressed. But that's just mental illness talking, and no one else needs to be dragged under because of it. He doesn't have the right to ask you this stuff just because he's depressed. Further down in the comments, OP adds their own comment and says, OP here. So I have the opportunity to move into a house only 2 minutes drive from where my brother lives, which I'm going to do. I can take my baby and pets there, but it's next month. That's also when my credit card is due for renewal, and the new one is going to be posted to my brother's house instead of me. I am setting that up to move out. I have tried to talk to my partner and present 2 options, get therapy or break up. He's taking it kind of weirdly. First morose, but now seems to think it'll all blow over and we'll quote-unquote work it out on our own without a therapist. That will not happen. There have been multiple tries over the last 2 years. I'm going to let him calm down for the weekend because I'm hoping I can get an uninterrupted Curse of Strahd game in after this talking good leaving, but we'll see. Work knows what's happening. I've also emailed my partner's psychiatrist with details about his behavior, so if he won't go to therapy, at least someone knows. I won't log in very often because of lack of opportunity, but I really think I'm going to leave. Thank you so much to those that replied. I was trying to think of something I hadn't tried, some other way to play D&D and still keep him happy, but I shouldn't have been. You just start to doubt yourself when you've been stuck in the mists for a while. And now, onto the update. Hi folks, just wanted to offer you a little update since so many of you offered the perspective on reality to get myself and my kid into a better place. So I gave my ex the ultimatum that either he and/or we get therapy or we separate. He chose no therapy because therapists always take one person's side, so I forced the separation. He moved out 6 weeks ago, I've been in my new home for a month. And it's like the fog has lifted. Life is basically better in every way. The more time I spend away from him, the better I feel. I'm back up to almost full-time hours, which suits me well with a toddler. I have significantly more freedom, and am going to make our home beautiful for the 2 of us. Since the separation, some of the highlights of his behavior include not packing anything at all with almost a month's notice until the last 4 hours before he had to leave. When he came to visit our kid at my home, he already knew where I would be living. He wanted me to look up the closest train station, the bus route, and the direction for him, instead of figuring that out on the 3-hour trip himself. He walked into my home like he owned the place, laid on my bed to pat the cat, raided my pantry, said he was going to take my remaining tea because I don't drink it and he does. As I said no, it's for guests, and after our child was in bed, offered to cook everyone, himself, myself, and my 3 friends serving as guardians, dinner out of my freezer and still-packed kitchen. I found a journal of his while I was packing his things. Turns out he did think I was having an affair at D&D. His reasoning was that I was always happy after a game, and he'd noticed changes in my appearance and behavior, which, for the record, he had requested I do a few weeks earlier. Also turns out, his version of enough sex in a day is 3 to 5 encounters. He paid a junkie down the street for a blowjob when I was pregnant. He seems to have felt bad about that. At various points in our conversations, he blamed me for trying too hard in the relationship, for misinterpreting his actions and words, even direct quotes, for not booking a therapist for him, and for not assuming the best of him anymore. The kiddo is doing great though. She hasn't actually noticed his absence at all and is having the best time in the new house. I'm also going to turn the dining room into a Dungeons and Dragons and dining room because I can. So thank you. I know a lot of you read these things just for entertainment, but seriously, thank you. And now in the comments, quote, he paid a junkie down the street for a blowjob when I was pregnant. He seems to have felt bad about that. Girl, WTF? OP, please be sure to get tested if you haven't already. And OP says, don't worry, results came through Wednesday, all in the clear. Figured I deserved a small bit of luck on my run. Quote, therapists always take one person's side. Only an asshole would be convinced of this. Well, he's right. They would not be taking his side since he is terrible. The therapist won't take sides, because they are not there to win an argument or decide who is the asshole, they are there to try to solve the issue. Especially not if it was his individual therapist. They'd tell him if he was doing things that were unhealthy or damaging to his relationships, but it would still likely be framed in reference to him, and not just that he was wrong and OP is right. Quote, the kiddo is doing great though. She hasn't actually noticed his absence at all, and is having the best time in the new house. How bad you gotta screw up as a father when your daughter doesn't even notice you gone? He was unemployed and she had to ask the grandparents to watch the baby or get a sitter whenever she wanted free time to play D&D. X would often interrupt and allow baby to interrupt too. Why was I not surprised to learn that he was into crypto? Great update, OP, but make future visits outside of your home and change your locks. OP replies, I'm content to let him visit in my home with other witnesses present until Christmas. It will let him see what he's missing, and I have portrait photos of our deceased cat who passed last Christmas that I'm going to hang in the lounge room where he usually spends his visits, staring down at his preferred chair. I wasn't allowed to hang them up before because he didn't like how they made him feel, but it's my house now and I want to see them. Petty, maybe, but I do want his photos on display. Our next post is titled, Am I the Asshole for Accepting a Job? I recently split from my ex after 10 years together. It was a fairly amicable split. He's been helping support me and my daughter since we split with money here and there, which has helped me a lot. I lost my job due to COVID and was taking an accountancy course. However, now I'm a single parent, money is extremely tight, and I can't afford the exams to finish before my October deadline. I recently found out X actually cheated on me and is living with a girl that he cheated with. I'm not friends with her, but she's an acquaintance. We had a big argument, and since then, he has stopped helping me with money. In addition to this, my benefits are about to drop by a significant amount due to COVID relief scheme ending. This has left me in a dire situation. I honestly can't afford to live in my home and support me and my daughter. My ex's oldest friend saw me at a bus stop and gave me a lift home last week. He asked how my studies are going, and I told him I couldn't afford to finish, which sucked because I had a lot of hopes riding on getting the qualification. He told me he is starting his own business and offered me a job. It's a great opportunity, well paid and great hours. I accepted, and he's arranged an interview for me. I will have to go through the same process as any other applicant, and that friend won't be conducting the interview, so there will be no favoritism. I've been so relieved and excited because of this, it honestly is going to save my life. My ex found out about the job and went mad. He's telling me it's inappropriate me working for his friend, even though it won't impact his life at all. He doesn't see his friend on a regular basis, and me and his friend have never and would never discuss or gossip about my ex. He won't see me or hear about me. He said the friend is just trying to sleep with me, which is highly doubtful, but even if he does, I would never go there because it's my ex's friend. I've also found out that before he offered it to me, the friend also offered the job to my ex's new girlfriend. Friend has since said that I am a better fit for the position, so if I'm interested, she won't be offered the job. I feel so torn because this is destroying my ex's relationship with his friend, but this is an amazing job opportunity which could lead to an incredible career. I can't afford to turn it down. Am I the asshole if I accept the job? Now in the comments, not the asshole. Sounds like he's upset that you got the job over his mistress. You take that job and do what's best for you and your daughter. And OP replies, I think so too. Thank you. By the way, you are not destroying his relationship with his friend. He is doing that all by himself with his behavior. He chose to react the way he has, you didn't force him to. Not the asshole for living your best life without your ex. People generally dislike when someone they used to have considerable control over becomes independent. Do your thing, do it well, and don't look back. And OP says, I honestly felt he was using the money to control me. He knew that I relied on him. He was very controlling in the relationship, and when he found out about the job, he offered me the money to complete my accountancy course. I turned it down because I feel uncomfortable taking money from him now. Thank you. That would be financial abuse. As long as you were under his thumb financially, you couldn't go anywhere until he was done with you. Despite what any other commenter says, do not take that money. Financial abusers often hold money over their partner/ex-partner's heads so that they feel indebted to them. Him attempting to give you money is his way of trying to say, I am not done with you yet. So keep being a queen. Get that job, make that cheddar, so you and your little one can live your best life, not the asshole. And now on to the update. Hi, I had a request for an update, so here it is. I took the job and haven't looked back. I've been there a month and I love it so much. The job, my team, I feel like I'm reclaiming my self-esteem in my life. The job itself is incredibly rewarding. I'm making a difference and doing something truly worthwhile. The company I work for is fantastic. They are fully supporting my education to grow within the company. I've already crammed my CV with certificates and I'm learning to drive. Looking back, I can't believe that I even questioned whether I should take it. I feel like this is the beginning of a beautiful future for me and my daughter. My ex reacted as I expected. He blew up and threw a few threats around, and he stopped talking to his friend. I've accepted that his reactions are his choice though, and not my responsibility, and friend agrees, so I'm not allowing him to spoil things for me. He can't manipulate me anymore. It feels good to take back control. Thank you to everyone who commented on my original post. It may have seemed obvious to most of you what I should do, but after 10 years of being emotionally abused by this man, I honestly couldn't see it myself. The replies I got really helped open my eyes to how much I was allowing him to control me even after we split, and empowered me to put my needs and wants before his. I appreciate it from the bottom of my heart. Thank you so much. Our next post is titled, Am I the asshole for refusing to babysit for my elder sister even though she'll pay me very well? Hi Reddit. I, 16 female, have been asked by my sister, 22 female, to babysit. She's offered to pay me a good amount per hour with double on holidays. Now, the problem is, I couldn't handle it. Her kids, 5 male and 2 female, are a bit energetic, to put it lightly. They're a bit of a handful, really. The youngest one isn't even potty trained, and while I do love children, I am not wiping their bums. I just don't want to take responsibility for someone's well-being, especially if things go wrong. I expressed this to my sister, who immediately burst into tears, saying she needed me as she needs time to herself as well. I told her I understood, but now she's complaining that I've rejected the offer, even though she'll pay me more than I'll ever deserve. I'm torn on this. My mum completely understands my point of view, but my dad says that it wouldn't hurt to help out from time to time. So Reddit, am I the asshole? And now in the comments, not the asshole. You are not their parent. It is not your responsibility to take care of them because she wants personal time. If she's really paying more than a normal sitter would get, then she should have no problem paying a professional. OP says, she says her kids aren't used to strangers, mainly the younger one, which was a pandemic baby, and that I'll be the perfect fit. You said no, your mum backs you up, end of discussion. You already said you don't feel like you could provide the best possible care and it stresses you out. No means no. I've read the other answers as well, and while I absolutely think you're not the asshole, after narrowing down your worries, I may suggest a compromise. Would it be plausible if she hired an actual babysitter and had you chill at her house with them so that the kids wouldn't be alone with a stranger and therefore feel more comfortable while the actual sitter takes responsibility and wipes bums and you were there for the emotional support for the kids? Your sis could pay the sitter the usual rate and you would get as much as you would have gotten more if you were alone. I.e., if she now wants to pay you $25, the usual is $15, then hire a babysitter for $15 and give you $10. Of course, only if you would like to and would have time. You are still not the asshole, even if you tell me my suggestion is bullcrap and I can go handle my own clusterfreak of problems. Edit to add, or maybe even just until the kids get used to said sitter, provided it's the same one every time. And by the way, what about the kid's dad? And OP replies, that's a wonderful idea. Thank you so much. Their dad hasn't been in the picture for a bit, I'm afraid. Don't know too much about the situation as it's a touchy spot for her. Not the asshole. Yes, it would be nice of you to help out, but if you don't want to, then that's fair enough. OP says, I just don't think I could handle the responsibility. I'd be too scared of messing up because it's someone's kid and you don't mess with that. I'm a parent, and when my kids stay with my grandparents or aunts, I'm only really bothered that they come back alive. It's not someone else's job to make sure that they eat well, go to bed on time, etc. But like I said, if you don't want to, then it's all good. You don't need a reason to say no. Not the asshole. She can pay an actual babysitter if she wants alone time. Unfortunately, being a parent is a full-time job, stressful and difficult, but a job she chose. If your dad says it wouldn't hurt to help out, then why doesn't he volunteer to babysit? Do not feel guilty. 2 energetic kids, one of which isn't potty trained, are difficult for anyone, let alone someone who doesn't want to be a babysitter anyway, to handle. Also, the pay you more than you'll ever deserve line is absolutely disgusting and not a way to get someone to do you a favor. That line alone should wipe any guilt you may have about saying no. And now on to the update. Hi Reddit, thanks for the advice. I talked to my sister and told her about my worries a few days after. By then she had started to calm down and look at the situation a tad more rationally. My dad also agreed that perhaps I'm not as ready as he thought that I'd be. He's kind of traditional, thinks all women love children and want to have them and should take responsibility for them. I mean, I do like kids, but I'm just not ready for them full time. After I asked him if he was willing to volunteer my time, why can't he volunteer his own? He became quiet and thought it over before agreeing with me. About the lockdown baby, another lovely Redditor came up with an amazing plan which both my sister and I are trying. The babysitter is lovely and he's around my age as well. He is much more confident than me with this stuff. So, hoping that something might happen. Doubt it though. Thanks for all the help, Reddit. Now in the comments, it's always good to see a happy update. Sounds like you handled it really well, and your family is very open to considering your side. I hope the plan works well. It seems you're not the asshole is turning into no assholes here. Rule of thumb, don't flirt with people at their place of work. The boy is working, so... Am I the asshole for not wanting my wife to take part in designing the basement? So I, 26 male, just got married to my wife, 25 female, back in September. My wife and I have been saving and investing throughout high school and college, so we were able to close on a really nice house. The house is 2,800 square feet and comes with 5 bedrooms, 3.5 bathrooms, a finished basement, a black patio with a hot tub, and a kitchenette. We bought this house as we're hoping to raise a family in this house. So we have 2 living areas, the basement living area and the main floor living room. I figured my wife would want to take priority over the main floor, so I said that she could design the main floor living room the way she would like, as well as the master bedroom. But I want to design the basement living area the way that I want. My wife asked why can't she help with the basement, so I told her that I wanted to turn the space into a man cave, so whenever I invite friends over, we would have a place to hang out. My wife was angry when I mentioned what the space would be used for, and she said that she did not want the space to be turned into a man cave, and that we both had to agree on how the basement living area would be designed and what it would be used for. I was a little irritated after hearing this, and so I told my wife that I'm letting her design the living area and the master bedroom 100% the way that she wants, and that I just wanted the basement living area to be completely the way that I want. I also added that since we currently have no children and are not expecting one at the moment, that she could use any of the bedrooms for something extra. After I said that, my wife started guilt-tripping me, saying that she was offended that I was excluding her and how this is not just my house, but how it's our house. I haven't started anything yet in terms of designing the basement living area, but I really want a space in the house that's kind of my own and is designed the way that I want. I have tried explaining this to my wife, but she keeps saying that I'm being selfish, so I wanted to know if I really am being an asshole here. Now in the comments, you're the asshole. It's not a question of who designs which area, it's the fact that you are saying she can design 2 areas, which will be for both of you, and you will take the one entire section of this house as your own. This is something that should have been discussed before you bought her home. And you know she'd have to worry about whether he liked what she did with the living room and their bedroom, while he checked out of the process of designing their shared space. It's kind of like letting someone cook you dinner. Hey honey, I'm graciously letting you cook dinner for the both of us, and in return, I'm going to eat all of the dessert myself. Sound good? It would be more accurate like this. I'm going to choose what I'll make for dessert and then eat it by myself. Why are you complaining? I let you decide what to make us for appetizers and entrees. You're the asshole. How generous of you to let her decorate shared living spaces for you and your future children to enjoy, while you get an entire basement for you and your buddies to party in. You cannot seriously believe that's fair. The fair thing would be to make the basement an entertainment room that you both design. You don't need a man cave. Consider your wife. You're the asshole. You are going to use the main living area and the master bedroom even if you let her design them, but you think it's fair that you get to have the whole basement as your man cave. Edit, adding that man caves are toxic. Yes, a man cave is toxic. I don't mind if there's a gaming room for him and then a sewing and painting room for me, but let's be honest. It's likely that guests will use both at some point. Fact is, I've had guests rip their pants mid-dance, in a dance game, and had to hide them in the sewing room until I fixed it, and I love to watch games and play something once in a while. Either a space to hang out or observe, I don't know, depends, but regardless, I don't care if someone pays for everything, unless you are a secret agent and save the world. I am coming into whichever room in the house when I want, bar the bathrooms while in use, because it is ours. And now back up to the post, there are 3 edits. Edit. Many people have suggested that I take one of the empty bedrooms and use that as a man cave rather than the whole basement living area. I think this is actually a good idea, and I'll bring this up to my wife and see what she thinks. I will also ask what she was planning on using the basement living area for. Edit 2. So far it looks like almost everyone agrees that I'm an asshole. I can see why I was wrong here, and I was definitely excluding my wife here. I plan on apologizing to my wife as well as asking her what she would like to do. And edit 3. Okay, so this post blew up overnight, so I'll give everyone a quick update. I apologized to my wife for excluding her and getting ahead of myself. I also talked to my wife and asked what she wanted to do with the house. She said that she's fine with me taking the basement bedrooms to be used as a man cave, while she will use the upstairs bedrooms for her own space. The basement living area will be used as a home theater, and my wife also said she would like for me to be involved in the designing of the rest of the house. Living room, master bedroom, kitchen, laundry room, etc. I really do see now why my original plan was just not a good idea. Our next post is titled, "Am I the asshole for asking my sister to contribute half the expenses of maintaining my mum's house?" My mother only has one asset, her house. She doesn't have enough savings to bankroll her retirement. My wife and I pay for it. My wife is a doctor, so she makes great money, and we can afford taking care of her. We've been sending her about $2,000 a month for 5 years now. We also take care of any incidental and emergency expenses. We also have all major house repairs, and I have never asked for my sister to contribute, as she is not as well off as we are. My mum wanted to get her finances in order, and she asked me to help. She talked about wanting to get her will written. She said she wanted to give the house to my sister. She has no other asset of note, and it would mean that my sister gets almost 90% of her assets. I have always known that my mum would skew the inheritance more towards her, and I didn't mind that. I thought I could help my sister. My sister needs it more, and we are already doing so well. I am really upset by this. I know it's greedy to be focused on the house, but it makes me feel horrible. I am the one who is always with her when she is sick, and she practically cuts me off the will. My sister isn't struggling herself. She is comfortably middle class. If she was really struggling, I would have understood it. This was about a month ago. The house needs some repairs again, and my mum asked me to pay for it. I called my sister and told her that I want her to contribute for half the expenses. I know it is petty, but I don't get why I should pay for a house which I will never get. She talked to mum, and she's upset with me for asking my sister for money, and she thinks that it's very petty and greedy of me for asking for money from someone who doesn't make as much as we do when we could afford it. I do feel like an asshole. I can understand why she is doing it, and if I think about it rationally, I can see why she would want to give the house to my sister, but I still feel horrible about it. She also feels that I'm being a horrible sister by forcing her to pay for stuff and just dropping it on her head. So am I the asshole? And now in the comments, not the asshole. Let your sister repair the house that she's going to get. You've paid enough already, she can take over. I'd even go so far as to issue an ultimatum. The house is split evenly, or you stop your allowance since you get no gratitude for your family's sacrifice. You and your wife have given $120,000 over the past 5 years. Your sister should be the one paying for everything for the maintenance of a property that she's going to get, not the asshole. More. $120K in addition to the cost of all the work and repairs for those 5 years. How much is the house even worth? And how old is their mother? How many more years will OP be expected to shell out $20K per year, in addition to all the other time spent helping with all other things, like doctor's visits? Not to mention all of the extra incidental and emergency costs OP and his wife pay for. I mean, damn, OP is even the one who helped and took her to get her finances, will, in order? If they hired a professional, did OP pay those costs as well? I don't know what I would do under these circumstances in OP's position moving forward. What I do know is not the asshole. I'm amazed that OP's wife is okay with shelling out all that money. Doctor making lots of money or not, that has got to get annoying after a while. And you're right, all the work in house repairs plus ongoing money given monthly, this is not an insubstantial amount of money, and it's not like the sister is not doing well too. Makes me wonder if OP's mum actually likes her. Supremely unfair not to split the estate equally at least. You've been very generous taking care of your mother and helping her keep her house, but maybe it's time for your mother to sell her house and downsize to something that she can afford, or just afford with less financial support from you. Since it sounds unlikely you will get any sort of inheritance, you also should be saving for you and your spouse's retirement to make sure you are both comfortable later in life, not the asshole. And not using your wife as an ATM to fund your ungrateful mom. You're the asshole for that. Curious if the wife has been informed about the will situation and her thoughts now. Wife needs to put a stop to this ASAP. Just the monthly $2K per month for 5 years, $120,000 of her earnings plus the incidentals have been funneled to this woman. It's one thing if it was OP's money, but he is totally using and taking advantage of his wife. He sounds like a master manipulator, and he learned this from his mom. And OP responds, "My wife doesn't care that we are supporting my mother. She has talked about giving more money a lot, but I have shot it down. You are reaching a lot in your comment, but considering that you're an anti-vaxxer, I understand that you're used to talking out of your ass." Also, her wife, not his wife. And now on to the update. So, I was feeling a massive amount of guilt for my actions, but most commenters supported me. I talked to my mother about how much money we have spent on her and how much more we were planning to spend on her. She didn't budge at all. I was incredibly frustrated, and we ended up having a yelling match. She said she wanted her money to go to her real grandchildren and not to our children who were adopted. It broke my heart. My children adore their grandma. They think the world of her. I have never noticed any favoritism in her behavior either. She has always doted on them. I don't know where this is coming from. She then explained that the house was my father's hard-earned money, and she couldn't really give that money to people she didn't approve of. She told me he would have wanted this money to go to my sister and her biological children, not to children who didn't even look like him. I don't understand how she could pretend to love my children for a decade. I was fooled by it. Everybody was fooled by it. I can't even process it. We have stopped funding her retirement. She will have to sell the house. I talked to my sister, and she cried when I told her what my mother had told me. She said she would handle buying our mother a new home. I haven't visited her in a month, and I'm not planning to visit for a long time. Edit to add, thank you for the kind comments. Yes, my wife did say it could be dementia. My sister is planning on getting her a wellness check soon. I'm trying not to think about it. Now in the comments, I'm so sorry that your mother has turned into this person that you no longer recognize, but your children are so incredibly lucky to have a parent that puts them above this kind of crap. I can't help wondering though, did OP's mum turn into this person? I understand the point that other replies to your comment are making about a possible personality change, but part of me feels like this was how she always was. She just kept it hidden so OP would bankroll everything, which would tie into why she never looked at OP's sister to help out. She doesn't want to take money away from real family. At OP, I'm sorry that you've been through this. At least it sounds like your sister is a better person than your mom, and you still have some decent family left. If a parent called my adopted kids not their real grandkids, they'd never see another penny from me. For real, and they would never see me or the kids again either. I'm the only mixed kid in my family, and my gran would have never said anything about it. When my gramps died, she started parceling out jewelry to all the kids and grandkids. I was very aware that I might not get something since I was a step-grandkid, but she gifted me with the most beautiful set of rings. I always will love her for that. To say your grandkids aren't yours because they're adopted or step is insane to me. My fiancé has 4 grown boys. His youngest is having a baby soon. I'm beyond excited. Will I be a grandma at 36? Yes. Is that insane? Yes. And he and his partner asking me what I want to be called? Yes. I would never. Yes, I didn't raise his kids, but I'm here now. They call me Mama Lo. They know that I'll be their kid's extra grandma. Your mum sucks, period. Not the asshole. Her selling the house is for the best. I thought maybe it wasn't worth much, but since reading through your comments, I saw it's worth between 1 and 1.5 million. She could definitely buy a smaller place and live off the proceeds of the sale. Most seniors tend to downsize for just that reason. You shouldn't have to subsidize her retirement when she is capable of doing it herself. You also shouldn't be paying to fix a house that you have no equity in. Sorry you had to find out such a shocking revelation by your mom. Just an aside, but has your mother had any health issues lately? If what she said about your children is so out of character, maybe her faculties are declining. Our next post is titled, "Am I the asshole for telling my mum that I can't and won't help her rebuild a relationship with her son?" I, 35 female, was raised in a family that honestly is pretty messed up. Reputation and wealth always come first for everyone, and well, perfection is the only answer. I'm not even joking. I have a brother, Oliver 19. Everyone adored him, and he was definitely favored growing up, but he's been through some crap that caused him to act out a lot. My mum had enough of his behavior and kicked him out when he was 16. He's been staying with me for the past 3-ish years. While living with me, he managed to get his act together as I put him in therapy to help him, and I kind of realized that the whole perfection thing my family drilled into our brains is kind of what was causing him to deteriorate so much. He goes to a good university, is in a sports team, and even has a part-time job. His mental health is still a work in progress, and he does have bad days, but we're working on it. I'm proud of him in all honesty. Anyways, my parents were aware that Oliver was with me, but only contacted him a couple of times in the past years. I would say I get it because of how stressful it's been, but I don't. That's your son, for F's sake. Well, a few months ago, my parents decided to divorce, which, hey, good for them. Should have happened years ago, but whatever. Ever since, my mum has been trying to convince me to let her talk to and hang out with Oliver. This extreme switch-up isn't good for him, as he relies on stability a lot, and I told this to her. She started crying when I did, and said that she is his mother. I kind of rolled my eyes and said something like, "What a great mum," sarcastically, and she cried even harder. She said she was sorry for kicking him out, but she just didn't know how to deal with a problem child anymore. It wasn't her fault, etc. I didn't think she was really getting my point, as I'm more annoyed by the whole perfection bullcrap that she never shut up about. Even I have problems with that. But I let her rant. Then I told her straight up that I wouldn't and couldn't help her with Oliver until he said he was ready. Even then, I don't know if I'd encourage him, and that she needs to live with her decisions. She practically called me an asshole and said that she was his mum. Not me, but I just ignored her. It's been a while now and I haven't heard from her, and I feel a little guilty. What right do I have to keep a mum away from her precious son is kind of what's been going on in my head. It's what she said as well. Am I the asshole? Now in the comments, not the asshole. Let me repeat, not the asshole. You're an amazing sister. Don't let guilt sway you from the incredibly caring path that you're on. Not the asshole, this right here. Your primary concern should be with your brother's mental health and his well-being. Your mother is a grown woman. She can deal with her own guilt and her therapy if she chooses to. I agree. Why the hell didn't his parents get him into therapy? Why the hell did they think that throwing out a minor was a good idea? I'm honestly stunned by the choices that the parents made. I think OP needs to keep Oliver safe, and I don't think Crazy Mother is a good influence. Quote, why didn't his parents get him into therapy? Because therapy is for crazy people, and crazy people are not perfect. Source, my father. I recognize him in what OP is telling here. Not the asshole. She kicked him out when he was a minor. What in the hell? And it's very likely that, even if she has good intentions, she will take out the current crisis she is going through in her life on her son and/or use him as an emotional support pillar when he is still trying to rebuild his mental health. Also, can she not contact him herself? Why is she putting you in the middle? Oof, that last part. Toxic parents have no communication skills. It's always, tell your sister your father said that. Nonsense. Eye roll. Not the asshole. You keep protecting Oliver. She is not sorry if she can't even admit what she did wrong and is still calling him a problem child. She is getting a divorce and not looking to rebuild a bond. She is looking to displace her emotions and for something to cling on to. She needs to take time to herself and go get counseling, and honestly, if y'all let her back in, her first visits with him need to be in a family counseling office with a therapist who will tell her what's what and not let her run him over. Not the asshole, as long as you are not blocking communication. She should be able to contact him through email at least, and he can decide if he wants to respond. He's 19, so not a kid, even though he's still young. You can let him know that you'll support him if he wants to ignore and block her or start talking to her again, but other than that, it is not your place to determine if they have contact with one another. That should be up to him. And now onto the update. Okay, so I'm just going to get right into it. After all of your reassurances that I was doing the right thing, which I was really doubting, I called my mother and told her that my decision is final and she is not allowed to contact my brother until and unless he or his therapist is okay with it. She cried her heart out, and it almost made me sad, but I can't bring myself to feel bad for her anymore. I'm just so tired of her. She messages me twice a day still, but I haven't replied to a single text. I would tell her to F off, but I'm dealing with unrelated family issues, so I can't do that right now. As for Oliver, the last week has been a bit of a struggle. Nothing super related to my mother, but that's the thing with mental health. Even the slightest thing can be a trigger. But we are working on it. Like I said in my last post, stability is the main thing that's helping him. It's why having our mum visit would be a very bad idea. She'd turn his world upside down very quickly and throw him off our schedule. Due to circumstances, he's still in the early stages of recovery and is still not mentally/emotionally ready to meet our mum, who is a huge trigger. I don't think I mentioned my daughter, but she's currently watching Frozen while I'm writing this, and the only thing on my mind is, do you want to build a snowman? So I'm sorry if I'm not wording this properly. But yeah, I know for many the answer may have seemed obvious, but sometimes I feel as if I'm overstepping because although I love my brother, I am not his mum. Might as well be, but that is a whole other thing. One more final thing that I wanted to add, why am I making decisions for him? He's an adult, right? Yes, technically. But because of his mental health problems, he does not have the same grown mindset as others his age. It's one of the reasons that he's in therapy. Anyways, to the people DMing me for an update, nothing much happened, but I assure you, Oliver is my top priority right now. Thank you for worrying about him though. And now in the comments, sometimes with trauma, your mental age can stall, you regress and act younger. You are a good sibling. OP says, I'm seeing that a lot with Oliver, which according to his therapist, makes sense considering what he's been through. Also, thank you. I am really trying hard to be a good presence in his life. Severe trauma always stops parts of you at that age, even as the rest of you grows up. There are always parts that are still stuck in the trauma, and without therapy, it just stays that way. That is why PTSD is what it is. You are living your trauma in some sense all the time, and sometimes it gets triggered actively into the present. Just read the original. She lost her right to be his mother when she chose kicking him out because I didn't know how to handle a problem child, over actively trying to figure out what she can do to help. You may not be his mum, but at least you took responsibility and didn't give up on him. OP says, agreed. I don't understand how a mother can just abandon their child when things get tough. Extremely specific reasons aside, I just do not get it. Especially since I have a child of my own now. I don't think I can ever forgive her for it. She didn't even tell me that she kicked him out. Thank God I showed up for a visit only a few days after. My husband and I were freaking out trying to figure out where he had gone, and she just shrugged and told us not to bother, that he'll straighten himself out on his own. Just thinking back to those days makes me angry. I could rant forever to be honest. Thank you for your comment, and I'm glad I didn't give up on him either. I'm happy that I gave him a chance to grow and heal because he is doing so much better now. You are doing the right thing, and I hope your mum doesn't come up with the idea to have a surprise visit at your home. Not sure if she knows where you live or not, particularly with your current family issues and Oliver still needing continuous stability and therapy. If she still insists that Oliver is a problem child, she may still treat him like one. Good of you to put up with those boundaries and continuing to protect Oliver. Whatever the issues you and Oliver are dealing with, I hope they pass. Take care, OP. And OP replies, she doesn't know where we live, and we live about an hour away. Thank you for your well wishes. While I know what happened to Oliver will stay with him for his entire life, I have hope that he can get better, that he'll be stronger and happier. He's already in a much better place than he used to be in, and I'm confident that he'll be okay. Obviously, there will be bumps down the road, and this is just one of them. Thank you once again, and take care as well. Am I the arsehole for telling a student I don't care? I teach 7th grade at a Catholic school. I don't teach all their classes, but I do teach math, religion, English, and social studies to my class. I have this student that I'll call Chrissy. She is a handful. She's a smart girl and usually does well on tests, but she is extremely dramatic. I have been having a lot of issues with her when it comes to late assignments. I do accept late work, but 10% is taken off each day late until they fail the assignment. Obviously, there are certain circumstances that students can turn in late assignments without penalty. Chrissy has been turning in assignments late all year and going on some sob story about why she couldn't get it done on time. I have been giving her full credit, but every time my patience is getting thinner. It's her grandma is sick, so she was visiting in the hospital. Her dog ran away, and she was out all day looking. Her uncle is sick in the hospital, her mum got stuck at work, so she had to spend all day babysitting her siblings, her dad got mad at her, which sparked an anxiety attack, and she couldn't do the homework. You get the picture. These are all excuses that she's used. There's even more. I feel bad as I think she's getting a lot more leeway than the other students. Today we had a pop quiz on a reading assignment from last week. This is a normal thing that we do on Mondays to test who read last week. After the quiz, Chrissy came up to my desk as the rest of the kids head to another class. So the grandma of her best friend growing up passed away. She was having a very rough time, so Chrissy basically spent the entire week with her after school and just couldn't get the reading done. She admitted to probably flunking the pop quiz and wanted to retake it later in the week. I looked at Chrissy, sighed, and just said, "Chrissy, I don't care. You do this all the time. It's not fair to the other students. You have to find a way to get your work done. The excuses are not going to work anymore." She started to tear up and plead with me. I told her if she's really having these serious issues so frequently, we can have her parents come in for a meeting to figure out what we can do. She insisted that wasn't necessary and she can't get her parents involved. I told her that's her only option. Either she gets the work done on time or we sit down with her parents. She left the room while yelling that people like me are the reason her generation has so many mental health problems because we don't understand their struggle. Am I the asshole for how I handled this? I really think I did the best I could. Now in the comments, not the asshole. I was ready to throw you out being an asshole, but what you said to her needed to be said. She doesn't want to get her parents involved because she knows she's wrong. OP replies, "That's where my head is. If there's a serious issue here, I'm not sure why she doesn't want her parents involved. You should probably reach out to the parents anyway. You never know what's going on at home. I don't believe all the stories she told you, but she might be overwhelmed with life and her parents don't know." OP says, "I think I will." Teacher here as well. I would have called home when she gave the first excuse for a well-being check. This way you can confirm whether or not something happened, keep the parents in the loop, and guide them in the requirements of the school and helping Chrissy manage her time in an effective manner. This will also help when it comes to report cards because you don't want parents asking why she's failed, only for them to ask why they weren't notified when she wasn't completing assessments. This is the way. Either the child is in a crisis, or the child is full of excuses and nonsense. Calling the parents for a talk and a check-in is the first step to sorting out which one it is and how to move forward. Not the arsehole, by the way. Or having an honest conversation with the student to say, "I cannot keep accepting undocumented excuses. I care, and I want you to be successful. How can we work toward that?" 7th grade is like 13 years old? Something like that? Anecdote, take it or leave it, when I was in the 6th grade, my mum died. 7th grade is a blur in my mind. My dad couldn't do anything at home, we were neglected and abused, and I had no idea. I didn't know why I was turning in assignments late or missed my dentist appointments or stopped practicing piano. Whenever the teachers would approach my lack of duty and commitment, I had an excuse. I knew they were lies. The real reason I thought was that I was a bad person. I would rather lie and say my dog ate my piano than to admit that I never felt like practicing. After therapy, I now know I didn't feel like playing the piano anymore because my mother was the one who got me interested in it. I'd rather lie and say I forgot to turn in my assignment because really, I didn't hear when they were due, so I'm a bad student because I was so incredibly dissociated because of trauma. You're right to be frustrated. You are right to care about how this looks like special treatment to the other kids. But as a teacher, you do know that some kids do need special treatment. That's a fact of life. We don't all get the same childhood experience. She doesn't have a personal vendetta against you, I promise. She isn't a criminal mastermind. It is effort to come up with so many excuses to cover up something that honestly makes you look really bad. You have to admit at some point, this is her best. You expecting your timelines to be met is normal and part of real life, but she will continue to struggle long after your class. You don't have to make accommodations for her, but I will say, if you do, she will remember it fondly for the rest of her life. I clearly remember every mentor that made any accommodation for me in my situation. They are my most treasured memories. You're the asshole. I also teach 7th grade, and you 100% crossed a line. You should have seen warning signs left, right, and center weeks ago if this was a constant issue. Those parents should have been contacted and brought in weeks ago. You should have reported a possible issue to the school counselor/psychologist so she can get some support. You are the adult and control the situation. You are meant to provide support and help. One of the very first things we learn as a teacher is that the home environment can negatively affect behaviors and classroom performance. I understand, the profession is exhausting and we have loads dumped on us, but that is no excuse to dismiss a student and expect them to have all the solutions. If you are burnt out, then contact those I suggested above for some support. Back up to the post, edit. Wow, I didn't anticipate this to blow up. I'll try to answer as many comments as I can when I'm free. I don't want to comment this 100 times, so I'll add it here. I'm seeing the community seems to be split on the reason of why Chrissy doesn't want her parents called. Personally, I am of the opinion that this is because she is lying, not because she's abused at home. Edit/update, thanks to a lot of your suggestions, I called her mum today at lunch. I actually just got off the phone with them. According to them, they actually did have an issue with an uncle being in the hospital, but the other ones are false. She figured Chrissy was on top of all her work, since that is what she told them. From now on, Mum and Dad are promising to be more involved when it comes to getting her work done. Problem solved. Thanks, everyone. Am I the asshole for moving out, taking all my stuff, and not telling my roommates? I am 19 female and live with 3 other girls, 19 to 20, in an apartment on campus. Since it's an apartment on campus, it's a 2-bedroom with 4 people, so everyone shares a room. I share a room with B, C, and D also share a room. Between me and D, we furnished the whole apartment. I want to acknowledge that I am the bitchy roommate. I call everyone out on money, food, and cleaning. I'm a full-time college student and I work 40 hours a week on top of that, but I'm also the one that does the most chores. Since I'm the only one with a job, my roommates expect me to buy everything for the place. Toilet paper, garbage bags, etc., and they get mad that I ask them to pay me their share of. I really enjoy cooking, and it's a huge stress relief for me. For the first month of the semester, we did group groceries and group meals. It was cheaper, and we would be getting better meals. I figured out we could get 2 weeks worth of meals for around $30 to $40 each every 2 weeks. I make the grocery list and cook the meals. After about a month, B and C said they don't want to do group groceries anymore because it's too expensive. I now cook meals for me and D, we shop together and split the cost 50-50. I'm cooking food for me and D still, B and C expect me to make them food. I told them they didn't pay for food, so I'm not making them any. So now they go out to eat and get takeout every night, then complain that they don't have any money. B has a boyfriend. He comes over and spends the night too. I share a room with B. I've asked her to let me know before he comes over. She did for a month, but now she tells no one. He comes over and takes naps in her bed when she's not in the room and I'm trying to do homework. I've asked her not to have him spend the night if I'm intoxicated due to trauma. I woke up after drinking and he was in the room asleep without her. So I did not fall back asleep and was not happy. He comes over all the time now, and she doesn't let us know. I'll jump in the shower in the morning when I walk back to my room in just a towel, and he'll be sitting on her bed while I try to get dressed. I'm in therapy, and because of the pandemic, it's virtual, so I do it from my own room. I can't help it if there is people home, but I've recently figured out that they've been listening to my therapy sessions. I'll talk about things in that session that I don't talk about with anyone else, but somehow C and B will bring it up later that night if it's something about the apartment and them. When I move out, they will have absolutely nothing in the apartment. No pots or pans, couch, a coffee table, a TV stand, all decorations, etc. I already cancelled my housing contract for next semester. It isn't going to be worth $2,000 for me. So I left for 2 weeks, packed up most of my stuff, and then left with it. I only told D that I was leaving for 2 weeks, so B and C have no idea where I am or most of my stuff, and honestly, I'm fine with it. Am I the asshole? Now in the comments, not the asshole. You don't owe them an explanation. They continuously crossed boundaries and didn't respect you enough. Your roomie's BF is nasty too. He's sitting there knowing you need to get dressed. That's gross. If you share a room, he shouldn't be staying over like that. Also, you own that stuff. They are adults and can figure their crap out. You should try and get a place with D. And edit, you do not owe people who treat you badly an explanation or another chance to talk you out of it. The only person who truly matters in your life is you, OP. You told the roommate D what was up because she respected you. You don't owe the other two anything. They were abusive and horrible to you. Worry about yourself, not if you hurt their feelings. They should have considered yours if they wanted you to consider theirs. Your roommates sound awful. Moving out and taking your stuff is clearly not a problem. You were free to do so. The only real question is whether doing it with no notice is an asshole move. I am leaning not the asshole. It would be nice to give them a heads up that you're leaving, but you aren't obligated to do so. She told D that she was moving out, which was nice, because she seems like a decent roommate, and as far as I'm concerned, telling B and C that she was moving out is a bad idea. They'll be petty and steal and break stuff. I would just leave them a note telling them why they suck and to grow up, and if she needs a roommate, maybe ask D if she wanted to move out too. Not the asshole. When things become intolerable in an apartment living situation with the roommates, about the only thing to do is to move out. Sometimes you have to do things first and then let them know later to avoid unpleasant confrontation. They have shown that they will change their behavior for a short time, but end up going back to their old patterns. De facto moving in a boyfriend into a shared bedroom is an absolute asshole move. Your bedroom is an environment that you were supposed to be safe in. Instead, you need to figure out how to change while the boyfriend sleeps in the room. Totally unacceptable. Back up to the post, there is an edit. I have told D that I am not coming back for the second semester. Everything that she paid for and bought is hers. I'm leaving her stuff alone, and that includes some of the stuff that we split the cost on. B and C have since decided to give me the silent treatment and have not talked to me for a week. I have my big furniture pieces and everything in the kitchen left there for me to grab over Thanksgiving break when no one is there. Otherwise, I have nothing else still there. I have talked to D about moving out and getting a place with me, and she isn't interested with moving into a house this year since she's from out of state. The apartment is through college housing, there is no rent to worry about for them to pay, a new random person will be placed into the apartment. The cost of living for them will not change. And now onto the update. I have successfully moved out of the college apartment, and I moved back in with my parents while I finish out this semester before getting into a house. My ex-roommates B and C have basically cut all contact with me. Me, B, C, and D tried to set up a time to talk about everything. B and C showed no interest and refused. I even went back to the apartment to try to help D with stuff because me and her are remaining friends. She understands why I'm leaving and isn't holding a grudge against me. When I went back, B and C locked themselves into the room that C and I shared. They were talking loudly, on purpose, so that I could hear them. B says, "We should go talk to her. I feel bad." C says, "I don't really care. She's a cow for taking everything." The two laugh and then stayed in the locked room until I left. They said nothing to me the whole time. I took everything of mine, only leaving them with the university-supplied furniture. No more nice furniture, nothing to cook with, no decorations, nothing in the bathroom, etc. I moved everything out when everyone was gone for the weekend. In moving out, I haven't been able to find a few of my belongings. In the end, the total amount for how much I'm missing is about $40. D has no idea where it is or how it went missing. B and C have completely cut off contact with me. They've blocked me on social media and left our group chats. From D, I found out that B and C will be moving out as well and into a dorm with just the two of them. C moved into the room with B for the time being, so now D has her own room. B still hasn't seemed to grasp the concept that she's the reason that I'm leaving more than anything. She's still bringing her boyfriend over almost every day and isn't asking. She is telling D instead of asking. D has told her no, he can't come over a few times, and she still tries to sneak him in. This ends in D yelling at her and then fighting, resulting in B locking herself in the room to pout. D wants to get the RAs involved, and I keep telling her to, but she hasn't yet. Me, C, and D were part of a friend group of 6 from freshman year. I talked to them and leaned on them for support, and they all agree that C and B are way out of line, formally kicking C out of the group. She's been removed from our group chats along with other social media. I definitely feel as though that's my fault, but I don't feel bad about it. C showed her true colors and made her own fate. Edit. My ex-roommates are not financially responsible for any type of rent since it's a contract with our college. The cost is paid in tuition. Am I the asshole for yelling at my son to stop taking my crap? I, 35 female, have a son, 12 male, who's getting on my nerves. Last year I bought these super comfortable rainbow sandals to wear around the house, as we have cold tiles, and it took me over a month to break into them. They are these flip-flops that are tied at first around the strap, but after wearing them for a while, your feet imprint into the leather and they become really comfortable. Once I broke into them, my son started trying them on. He liked them and started wearing them frequently. I offered to buy him a pair, but he refused. He likes mine and would only wear mine. At first I didn't care too much, so I bought another pair for myself and moved on. A few more months go by and he abandons them and takes my new pair. At this point I'm furious because I can't even wear my old pair since he stretched them out. I confronted him and sort of yelled at him. They're expensive and this was getting annoying. He said that I'm being favoring towards his sister because I let her wear them, even though she barely ever wears them herself and doesn't stretch them out. I don't understand why he has to wear mine. Am I the asshole? And edit, just to clear it up, no, my daughter does not always wear my flip-flops. She wears them only occasionally, like once a month, when she's trying to match them with her outfits. My son was wearing them like daily. Now in the comments, not the asshole. Don't let your son manipulate you. You are the parent here. You gave him your first pair, even offered to buy him his own. He needs to learn that he can't just take crap that doesn't belong to him. Explain that her feet are smaller than yours so it doesn't ruin your shoes when she does it, but then make a rule that no one takes your stuff. Equal, and then he has nothing to complain about. Not the asshole. I'd have agreed with you for just the title of your post, lol. Mum of 14 and 11-year-old boys, my 14-year-old drives me bonkers and must have been put on this earth to test me for sainthood, which I am failing the test spectacularly. Yeah, it isn't good to yell blah blah. Why in the world is he wearing the new pair? Does he even have a reason? Or is he like mine and just trying to drive you crazy? Or is it a convenience thing? Yours are there and he's just too lazy to go find the others. I'm gonna resort to petty parenting. Does he have a favorite article of clothing? Can you wear it? Lol. Sorry I'm no help. Not the asshole since he stretches them and you let him have the old pair. I'd talk to him and ask why he's insistent on taking them again. And what is a reasonable solution to him that you can comfortably wear a pair without him continually stretching them out? Is he willing to do chores in exchange for this constant cycle of you buying them, making them comfortable, and then him taking them? And now to the update. You guys told me that I took the wrong approach by yelling, and I did feel bad, so we did talk about it. I went to his room and asked him why he was adamant about wearing them and not his own, and I asked him why he couldn't wear the ones that I already gave him, and why he went for my new ones instead. I was calm and didn't have any aggression. I was just curious to know, since many of you said that it may be indicative of something deeper. He wasn't really responsive at first. He was just sticking to his phone and wouldn't look up. Eventually, he opened up and said that he just liked how they felt, and he liked how soft they were from me having worn them for so long, and he said they were aesthetically pleasing. I told him that my old ones I gave him were also broken in, and that they were identical. After all, I wore them around the house for months, but he said he liked how they felt when they were fresh from me having worn them. I told him this was going to be wasteful, and we came to an agreement that he would stick to my older ones again. Towards the end, I slipped the question if he wore them because he wanted to feel closer to me. He cringed and said that that was ridiculous, but the look on his face told me otherwise. The reason I bring this up is because many of you said that he might have been subconsciously trying to bond with me. To give context, I used to work until a few years ago, and I've since been much more involved with him. I never thought that he might be trying to be closer to me, but now I see it and I wholeheartedly invite it. Plus, I think it's adorable, seeing him wear the flip-flops that I've prepared for him, and he's been so much more open to me. It also seems like this is much more common than I previously thought, so my message to you guys is to be more receptive of your kids' implicit messages, because they honestly may be telling you something. And now in the comments, it's great that you've had a nice chat about it, and you're welcome to your kids nicking your stuff, the pretty standard preteen/teen move. My 20-year-old daughter was the one nicking off with my stuff, but the rather interesting and delightful thing is when she feels she's grown out of stuff, she gifts it to our 13-year-old daughter, a lovely way they bond together. Oh yes, and the perfume the 20-year-old would nick, well, lo and behold, for little Mrs. 13th birthday, she bought her the exact same perfume. Am I the asshole for not wanting to change my name and asking my fiancé to change hers? I, 27 male, have been with my fiancée, 24 female, for 3.5 years. We are very happy together, and I can't imagine my life without her, but we have had a hard time reconciling this disagreement, so I posted here at her suggestion. We've been talking more and more about marriage recently, and what it would look like. For me, part of the significance of marriage is becoming family with each other, and that includes sharing our last name. When I think of being bonded with her in that way, I get really happy and excited, like we are a true pair and the whole world could recognize it. However, she wants to keep her last name, as she says it's a hassle to have to change it. I think that's fine, but I'm the only guy on my side of the family who could carry my family name. I have 2 sisters who are married already, so it's literally just me left. It's a pretty unique name, not like Johnson or Smith, so my family name would die out if I don't carry it and pass it on to our kids. Fiancé doesn't really care about matching our names and suggested that I could change my name to hers so we can match, or otherwise just both keep our own last names after we marry. She has a brother, so her family name would be carried on either way. I feel like it's different for that reason, and she should compromise with me and change her name. Am I the asshole for not wanting to change my family name and asking her to change hers instead? Now in the comments, sorry dude, you're the asshole. Welcome to the 21st century. It is a massive, massive pain to change your name and update everything. Massive. Words cannot express how massive. You either want to marry her or don't. You choose. The name change BS is a holdover from when women were considered property, and while some still embrace that tradition, it's not universal and not everyone does it or wants to. In fact, in some places, it is illegal to do so. If you want to make this your hill to die on, so be it. If your idea of compromise is give me exactly what I want and what you specifically said you didn't want, I'm unclear on how this is going to work out well. That's what I was going to say. A compromise would be you changing your name because she doesn't care about the name being the same or hyphenate, but not having her do exactly what you want. You're the asshole for, quote, not wanting to change my family's name and asking her to change hers instead. Why do your wants come first? She doesn't want to change her family name and is thus asking you to change yours as well. But the fact that you expect her to just do what you want when she's trying to compromise, Back up to the post, we have an ETA, getting some questions about hyphenating our names. I am willing to do this, but she is not. She does not want to change her last name at all due to the hassle of it, so basically she says I can take her name or just accept us having different last names. Also, some comments are mentioning this is my hill to die on. It's really not, or I wouldn't be posting here. It's just something my fiancé and I are having trouble sorting, and we wanted to get some others to weigh in. I obviously won't and can't force her to do anything. Edit to add 2, it's hard to keep up with the comments, but I'm reading them all, and so is my fiancé. She's getting a kick out of it, which makes me glad, I suppose. But to address a couple more questions that are popping up, we talked and are both okay with the kids taking my last name. She's thinking about this still, but might use my last name socially and keep her name legally so she doesn't have to deal with the hassle, but we will still get a shared name. And now onto the update. Hello. My original post got so much more attention than I expected, and I figured you all deserved an update. It was really rough for me to read literally thousands of messages calling me an asshole. I even lost my cool a little bit. Shout out to the mods for not permabanning me for my tantrum, even though it would have been fair. But my wife and I read every comment together and discussed things thoroughly. I had not considered the patriarchal and historical angle of asking a woman to take a man's name and give up her own. It's just not something that I'd been exposed to much. It turns out this was there in the background for my wife and was bothering her, but she wasn't fully aware of it, much less how to explain it to me. So it wasn't just about the paperwork and hassle of changing her name, she was also resisting because she felt weird about giving up her name. I had no idea that she felt that way and was glad some commenters gave her the language to actually talk about it with me. Part of our process in resolving this difference was to do 23andMe tests and build family trees. This ended up being really enjoyable, and we both found out some great family stories and tidbits from relatives. I highly recommend for other couples to do this too. We both feel much more connected to our personal histories, and therefore our last names now. And it was very moving for me to link our family trees together, and gave me that sense of romantic connectedness that I was seeking through the names. The end result? We got married 2 weeks ago without a legal name change. In the future, we are thinking of hyphenating our names, maybe. Neither of us are pressed to do it immediately, as we are basking in the newness of our marriage. Our kids will also have hyphenated names too, if we are blessed with some. I am thrilled to be married to the love of my life, even if we are not a matching Mr. and Mrs. for now. I would still like to be someday, but if we do, then the hassle of changing our names will be something we suffer through together instead of an unequal burden. Most of all, this experience has massively changed the way my wife and I approach our differences or conflicts together. We work through things slowly, gently, and without assumptions until we understand each other, and that has been the best thing to come out of this experience. So although I didn't expect to say it, thank you to everyone who called me an asshole a few months ago. My wife thanks you too. And edit to add, thank you sincerely for all of the well wishes for my marriage. My wife will read them all too, and we are grateful to anyone wishing us well. And now in the comments, good on you, OP. Learning how to have disagreements is an important skill for a long and happy marriage. Keep listening to and trying to understand each other and you will do just fine. OP replies, yes, I really agree. I feel even closer to her now than before because of the way that we can sort through disagreements so carefully towards each other. It makes me feel so secure and happy. I wish everyone could find this too. Great role model for other couples in similar circumstances. Congratulations and best wishes on your marriage, OP. This is really wholesome, OP, and you two thought of a beautiful way to solve the issue. Thank you for the update. Some couples come up with their own new last name. Just saying that's an option if y'all want something completely new. And OP replies, thank you for this suggestion. We both feel very connected to our last names, and each other's too, after our research, and want to honor our family by keeping them. But I understand this option as well, and how it would feel really nice for a married couple to name themselves. Names can be very empowering. Our next post is titled, Am I the asshole for my ex-friend's dog getting taken away and possibly put down? Info. My dog Coda, Chihuahua Mix, is scared of other dogs. He actively goes out of his way to avoid other dogs and even hides behind me on walks when other dogs come by. I have a vest that says not dog friendly, so people know this. My sister recently bought a puppy, Rhino, who is a Shih Tzu Australian Shepherd mix, and we introduced him slowly to Coda, and he's gotten along with him. No signs of aggression or fear. Rhino has no prior training of any kind. A week ago, my ex-friend Ali asked if her dog King, who's a Mastiff, could have a playdate with Coda. King is a nice dog, but he plays way too rough with smaller dogs, and Ali doesn't correct him, so I said no and offered for him to meet Rhino, who is bigger. She got mad and called me nasty names because I stayed firm on my no. Now to the incident. This morning, while me and my sister were drying Coda and Rhino off from their baths, Ali pulled up with King in her car. My sister immediately took Rhino to the backyard since Coda was getting a little anxious with King's barking. Ali got out, and I started yelling at her to keep King in the car. I didn't want to move in fear that Coda would bolt, since we don't have a fence in our front yard. Ali said this would help Coda, and opened the back door to her car. King bolted from her car straight at me. Coda started yelping and trying to get out of my arms. I tried to pick Coda up so King wouldn't get to him, but I tripped. I don't really know what happened at that moment because I had a panic, but from what my sister told me, Rhino slipped out of the back gate and jumped at King. He kept barking and biting at King until he ran back to Ali. My mum came out and helped me get in the house so I could calm down while my sister grabbed Rhino. At some point, one of them called the cops and animal control took King from Ali. Ali then tried to get them to take Rhino because he attacked King, but we showed them security footage that Ali started the whole mess. The police forced her to leave, and my sister filed a police report. I've been getting angry texts from Ali and her family, calling me cruel and evil for causing Ali to lose King, and how he was going to wrongly be put down because I couldn't control my dogs. I truly feel like this is my fault, but at the same time, I don't know, since King isn't an aggressive dog. Am I the asshole here? And edit, Ali was the one to call the police. And now in the comments, not the asshole, nowhere near. You repeatedly asked your friend not to bring her dog. When she showed up uninvited, you asked her to leave the dog in the car. I get that King was likely a big baby and just wanted to play, but it ran straight for you and your sister's dog took that as a threat. As far as your friend's family, it is none of their business. You have texts, hopefully asking Ali not to bring the dog. I'm sorry the dog had to be taken away, but this is on Ali. Dogs naturally protect their territory and people, so of course the sister's dog attacked the friend's dog, which was aggressing and off-leash. It was 100% the now ex-friend's fault. Not the asshole. Ali didn't listen to you despite you telling her to keep the dog in her car, and all the times you said no to protect Coda. If Ali decided to let her dog out, even though you said no when she pulled up, and after you explained why King wouldn't get along with Coda, then it's kind of on her. Especially because her letting out her dog caused the panic. I don't think the dog would get put down in this situation. I think so too. Sounds like King was just excited, nothing more, but it was Ali who was an ass in this situation. But honestly, Mastiffs are huge. Even if King was just playing, he could seriously hurt a dog the size of a Chihuahua. Imagine being a dog smaller than a cat, already scared of other dogs, and seeing a freaking mountain of a dog running at you. And Ali thought that would help Coda stop fearing other dogs? What she did was cruel, and must have made Coda even more terrified of other dogs. She truly deserved to have King taken away from her, and I hope he gets a home that has more understanding about the breed and will train him properly. And OP says, oh, that's good. I was worried that he would. Your friend is the asshole and a horrible dog mum. I would never put my dog in a position where she could aggress another animal and be taken from me. What she did was awful. It wasn't her dog's fault either. She is just terrible. Sorry this mess has happened to you. And now on to the update. So I finally have an update on Ali and King. I had blocked everyone that was part of Ali's family so that I wouldn't have them blowing up my phone. But I did run into Ali's uncle and King at the vet, who explained what happened after I blocked everyone, and I learned that 1. Ali lied to her family about what happened, and 2. King isn't registered as her dog. For the first half, she told her family that I had arranged the doggy playdate with our dogs, and that Rhino got aggressive with King and attacked him, and that I got King sent to the pound. So that's why they had harassed me about what had happened. The second thing was that because King wasn't registered as her dog, they had to call her uncle, who was the registered owner, to go pick him up. There they informed him about what actually happened, as well as the fines and classes for King. Her uncle was livid because he had trusted that Ali had stopped doing things like this a long time ago, incidents that I had no clue about. So he went back to Ali's home, as she lives with her parents, and blew up at her in front of her family who had gathered to support her. He even showed her parents the police report of the incident. Her family were mortified that they had wrongly harassed me, and they tried to apologize. Her uncle in particular was very angry because that was his name on King that got dragged into the mess. So not only is she going to be the one paying the fine and going to the pet classes with her uncle, her parents also took away her right to have a pet for as long as she lives under their roof. Also, for those that wanted to know, Coda and Rhino are doing fine. Coda actually made his first big doggy friend last week with an older pit bull named Rex. This was done in a safe and controlled environment with a trainer. Now in the comments, I went to read the original post to get the gist of the original issue, and Ali was definitely the asshole. She was absolutely careless and did not know how to take care of and control a mastiff. And to think that she was the one who called the cops. Shot herself twice in the foot there, if you ask me, and now she's learning about the consequences. I'm curious, how did she get to keep King when her uncle is the registered owner? If you don't know, that's okay, OP. Glad to know that you, Rhino, and Coda are doing okay. And OP replies, if I remember correctly, I think her uncle had fallen on hard times a few years ago and left King with them until they got back on his feet. Ali had gotten attached to King, so her uncle let them keep King, but he never changed the information on the microchip, and Ali didn't bother to either. So he was legally still the registered owner. Thank you for sharing that. And after recovering from hard times, Ali's uncle now has to deal with his name being on a police report. And now that King has been returned to his rightful human, I hope King and Ali get the training they need. Personally and ideally, King shouldn't be returned to Ali. And OP says, yeah, he said he's not going to give King back ever, but Ali will be expected to go to the classes with him and King as a part of her punishment. So Ali gets trained alongside King, but no King. Regardless of what they heard from Ali, harassing you was unnecessary. It is great that the truth came out, but F that whole family. Except maybe the uncle. They were acting based on what Ali had told them, but, quote, her uncle was livid because he had trusted that Ali had stopped doing things like this a long time ago, incidents I had no clue about. She had done this sort of thing before, so honestly, it is still on them for believing the girl who cried wolf. Even if Ali was telling the truth, there was no need for them to harass OP. Basic common sense could have also told them that Ali's story made no sense. Would I be the asshole for kicking my roommate's mum out? First things first, I have to say this is a pretty long history, so I'll try to resume it. So I'm currently studying at university and living with two of my classmates. I met them in first year, now I'm in third. Let's call them A and T. T has been a very lazy person since I met him. In September, T was unfortunately diagnosed with a testicular tumor, yet to confirm if it is benign or malignant, and his mum came to the flat 2 weeks before the operation. She told us that she was only staying for 2 to 3 days. Here the problem started because she was living as if she was in her own house and not taking us into account. For example, we couldn't even watch TV at night because she was already watching it. Not only having her at the flat, his father and his brother came to the flat as well. It's important to know that the flat is only accommodated for 3 people. We were, and we are, deprived of any liberty. We have no privacy, and last but not least, the electricity bill is going to be massive because here in Spain, the light price is increasing day after day. Once the operation came, instead of going home in order to recover from the operation, they decided to stay at the flat. The university made an exception and allowed online classes. He only went home when we had to present some work in front of the class, just to read it instead of studying. A and I were pretty happy because they had finally left, but just our luck. T's mum came 2 weeks ago, and she's been staying here since then. My other roommate and I have been talking, and we think this situation is unsustainable. The problem is that when we try to talk with her, she always comes up with the tumor and tells us that T has lost his appetite and that he's in a pretty bad situation, which is completely a lie because he's able to walk by his own and he also goes out with us. We think that T is living like a king and he doesn't want his mother to leave because she does every chore that he has to do, but we can't stand it anymore. So would I be the asshole for kicking her out? Now in the comments, I'm pretty sure if this is university-owned housing, non-students cannot live there. Not the asshole. Reach out to your housing board to report this situation because this is absolutely crazy. You should register your concerns with the university/landlord and let them take it from there. It shouldn't fall on you or A to remove her from the premises. Sorry to hear about his diagnosis, but he should be recovering at home, not inconveniencing everybody else in a shared living space. Not the asshole. Not the asshole. You signed up to live with your roommate, not his mother. Also, if they are close enough to continue dropping in and staying over like this, then they are close enough to have brought your roommate home instead. Super inconsiderate. Make them leave. You would not be the asshole. She does not live there and it's time for her to leave. If she can't be apart from her son, then both of them should leave until he's recovered. And now onto the update. First of all, I would like to thank all of the people that commented because it gave us courage enough to face the situation. As I talked with some of you, A and I decided to confront them on Friday regarding the week the post was made. We told them that we wanted the best for T, but if that involved his mum taking care of him day after day, they should go home, or we would be forced to talk with the landlord. We had talked with her before this conversation, and she told us that she could kick them, but A and I had to pay for the rest of the expenses. They told us not to worry because this situation was already finished, and supposedly T's mum was leaving, or so we thought. Without really knowing how, T's mum was at the flat again the following week. We were speechless and told them that this was enough and that we were calling the landlord at that same moment. They begged us not to do it and explained that this was an exception because T's final appointment with the doctor was on Friday. Take into account this conversation was on Monday. We, being the soft-headed people that we were, told them that it was okay, but on Friday, T's mum had to leave obligatorily. When Friday came, a friend of mine who lives in a city 40 minutes far from where I live invited me to a party. I agreed and told T and T's mum that I was leaving for lunch and we wouldn't come back until Saturday afternoon. I really don't know why I told them this, but I did it. As I left, I told them not to forget what we talked about on Monday, and they told me not to worry. Something happened at my friend's party, which was nothing to do with T or T's mum, and I came back to the flat on Saturday, but in the early morning. At about 10 a.m., a loud noise woke me up, and it took me a few minutes to focus because I'd slept for 4 hours. The loud noise was the voice of T's parents arguing about how T's mum abandoned T's dad with her parents. T's family lives with T's grandparents. T's mum said that she needed some alone time just to think about things, and she didn't know if she loved him. Of course, they thought that I wasn't in the flat because of what I had told them earlier. I was boiling with anger and got out of my room. What a picture their faces were. And I told them, "So, what's all this about, huh? Get the hell out of my flat or I'll call the landlord immediately." They shut up and went home. It turns out that T's mum's thinking space was our flat all this time. Now in the comments, the truth came out. T's mother was obviously taking advantage of what she thought was a free place to live while separating from her spouse. T was probably in on the deception too. While I'm sorry that T was dealing with a tumor, his mother's presence in your flat was never necessary. Good for you for booting her out. Honestly, if the expenses for the rest of the semester are divided by 2 instead of 3, I'd send the bill for the overage to her as payments in arrears for the rent and expenses related to her unwelcome tenancy. But T is still living there? OP says yes, but we will take actions on the next quarter because we found a new flatmate who is willing to live with us and hopefully he won't drive us crazy. Dude, you don't have a T's mum problem, you have a T problem. Call the landlord and stop bluffing. OP says, I know. We wanted to give him the benefit of the doubt, but we are taking actions. I couldn't write it because of the character limit. Wow, that's unbelievable. She took advantage of you and A. I'm glad that you wised up and kicked them out, including T. I'm a mum, my kids are already adults, and I would have taken my child home to recuperate from the surgery or any illness, not stay at the apartment with roommates because knowing there were roommates around, that could impede my child's recovery. so I'm glad to hear the whole thing. She is a piece of work. From now on, no more of any of your roommate's parents. Send your roommate home to his or her parents to recover, just in case. And OP replies, that is what everyone would have thought. It seems common sense does not apply for these people. Am I the asshole for accusing my daughter's mother of making me a deadbeat? So I, 44 male, am fairly well off. I'm high up in the company where I work, and money is no problem for my wife, 33 female, and 2 kids. When I was 17, I wasn't the type of person that you'd want to be a father. My own father was a terrifying presence. I almost flunked high school. My high school girlfriend Sophia left me after I got held by the cops one night, and in a double whammy, she moved to Scotland with her dad for university in Edinburgh. Sophia was pregnant and never told me. She never kept in touch, and I wasn't really looking her up in Scotland. I feel like I had a right to know. Ironically, her leaving made me get my life together, and I did very well in university. Sometime when we were 18, she gave birth to my daughter, Inessa. Well, Inessa knew who I was, and so she decided to contact me, telling me I was her father. Sophia and Inessa had moved back to the country, different city, and I flew out to meet her. I saw a picture of her after she contacted me, and she looks just like my mother, so no need for a DNA test. I avoided seeing her mum, and I spent all the time that I could with her, getting to know her, and learning all that I had missed. Here's the kicker. I gave my kids the best life possible, but she struggled her entire life. After Sophia's dad died, they had a bad time in Scotland, and even briefly moved in with her mum to Russia. They're doing good now, because my Inessa's got a great job in the same field that I started out in. It made me sad. I could have provided for her. She could have gotten into the fancy schools that my kids go to. She could have gotten new shoes, clothes, games every birthday and Christmas. She didn't even have her father to teach her how to drive. I didn't even pay child support. It makes me upset that I didn't do right by her. When I met her mum again, it was intense. I laid out everything I wrote in a calm manner, and my daughter made me leave as her mother was going to cry. I met Inessa the day after when I left, and we've talked every night since, but we haven't brought that up. My wife told me that I was an asshole to tell her mother that, and demanded I apologize, but I couldn't help but feeling like I wasn't wrong. However, a few days ago, my wife told me that she's pregnant, and she talked to me about the situation in terms of, what if I passed away before my child was born? And since then, I have felt like a major asshole, because Sophia did a much better job with Inessa than other single parents that I knew like my own father. So am I the asshole? Now in the comments, might get downvotes, but you're the asshole. Think about her perspective. By your own admission, you said that you weren't the type of person someone would want to be a father. You were failing school and being held by cops. She was young, pregnant, and most likely scared of her future. It took her leaving to get you to decide to get your life on track. I know being told that you had a daughter was a shock, but would you really have provided for her being a teen dad? Apologize to them and just make the most of what you have. You now have the opportunity to spend time with your daughter. If you keep harping on the past, then you will hurt your daughter. Agree. He is in a better state now to raise kids, but he was not at the time he was a new father, or probably for many years afterwards. He needs to acknowledge that to her mother and apologize. This is so whack. He deserved to know that he had a kid out there regardless of whether he was a perfect parent. He really did. I don't know why people think he didn't. This is tough, and while I empathize with your situation, I think you're the asshole. You were focusing on your rights and what happened in the past instead of how to build a relationship with your child going forward. Fighting with her mother over what she should have done when she herself was a child is not going to make things better for Inessa or anyone. What are you talking about? If genders were reversed here, this would almost be considered a kidnapping. He has every right to wish he was a part of his daughter's life and to know of her existence. The mother may also have her reasons. Not saying that she made the absolutely wrong choice, but shutting out a father from the life of his daughter was still a choice that she made, and these are the consequences. Not the asshole. She kept your child from you. What the hell is wrong with these comments? She intentionally kept your child from you. Years of their life that you'll never get back, that you never got to see. I'd be raging at that mum. She's cruel. And info, did Sophia have reason to believe that you were dangerous? OP says, not me, but around our neighborhood, my father was always kind of a boogeyman. He wasn't conventionally powerful or anything, but he was cruel, kept bad company, and was abusive to me, and always made Sophia feel uncomfortable. I think me getting held by the police kind of said to her that I would be no better than he was. Why would she have any impetus to ever tell you if all signs indicated that you were going to be exactly like your father? She probably felt it was safer never to talk to you than to have to deal with whatever version of you turning into your father that she imagined in her head coming at her for a shared custody and child visitation in another country. OP says, at the very least, she could have found out if I did turn out like him. She didn't even try. And you could have gotten your act together. Checked in on her and apologized for being an asshole when you were a kid and whatever part you may have played in her leaving the country and cutting you off. But you didn't. I'm not sure why you deserve more consideration and effort than what you gave her. Sounds like you haven't changed as much as you think you have. And how exactly would he have checked in on her when she moved to an entirely different country 27 years ago? Why would he ever think to do so when he had no idea she was pregnant? There are grounds on which to criticize OP, but this is a crap take. And now onto the update. I figured that I'd post an update since I've met with my daughter Inessa and her mother Sophia again. I went to the city that Inessa lives in for a business trip and she agreed to meet me. I went to Sophia's home and took the time to talk to Sophia while Inessa was changing. I did what most of you and my wife recommend and apologized to Sophia. I told her that I was hurt I couldn't be there for her and Inessa, but that she did an incredible job, better than I would have been able to do before I got my life on track, and I admire how much stronger than me she is for doing it all despite all she faced. This brought tears to her again, but thankfully she hugged me and forgave me. She then apologized to me for not telling me when I was older, but told me that at first she was afraid of my father and later on didn't want to disrupt my life. I told her it didn't matter and all that matters is Inessa and her happiness. When I went to dinner with Inessa, I gave her an old photograph of my mother as a gift and she thought it was some old-timey photo of herself at first because they looked so similar. I told her about my own terrible father and why it hurt me so much that I didn't get to be there for her because I had this notion that it's a father's duty to always help his child, guide them, teach them, and love them, and they're a failure if they weren't. I told her that I was sorry that I made her mother cry, but know now that she was a better mother and father to her than I could have been at that time. She also forgave me, and when she called me dad, she'd just been saying father before, which was still adorable because of a mix of a Russian and Scottish accent. For the first time as she hugged me, it was the best feeling in the world. Although I'd booked a hotel for the night, Inessa insisted that I stay with her and Sophia. We wound up staying for hours watching old home movies of Inessa as a kid, which she'd converted into digital from tape somehow. And even though I couldn't be there for any of that, I do feel a bit better about it. Before I left, I promised Inessa that I'd always be there for her, and if she ever needed anything, to just ask me, and I'd take a flight to see her that day. When I got home, my wife told me that I did the right thing in apologizing to the both of them, and that I should see her for Christmas, and that our kids would be fine without me for once. So I thank you guys for recommending that I apologize. It feels like a weight has been lifted, and I can be there for Inessa without regrets. Now in the comments, a happy ending to a sad story. Do your other children want to meet their half-sister and connect with her? Does Inessa want to meet them? OP replies, Inessa has a fear of flying, particularly because she flew so much between Edinburgh and Moscow as a kid, and admitted that it was hard for her to move from Scotland to Vancouver because of it. So unfortunately, she's not going to fly over Canada to Ontario anytime soon. Maybe sometime next year I'll bring my family out to Vancouver, since she's said she'd rather meet everyone in person than on the phone. I'll probably make a habit of visiting as often as I can though. And what about your other children? What do they say? Are they excited? OP says, I don't know if either of them really understand yet, other than they have a big sister on the other side of the country. My daughter Zahira is 7, and I think she's more curious and a bit excited since she's asked about Inessa. My son Jazz is 4 and is a bit more confused as to who this new big sister is. I think actually meeting her, whenever it happens, will clear everything up for them. I gotta say, one thing this whole pandemic has showed me is that Zoom is a wonderful thing. I have cousins in Australia, Boston, and Arizona, and with enough good monitors and cameras and connections, their toddler kids have been playing together and getting to know each other. Not as good as hugging each other and everything, but when they did finally meet, they actually knew each other. So, just saying, it's not too soon for them to meet, even if it's not in person.